Hey guys, Mr. Overgrowth back here from PwnTV, and I want to take a little bit of time to discuss some of the jobs in Final Fantasy XI that have existed and come out through different expansions over the last 15 years. Particularly what I want to discuss is the price that it takes to actually play a job in this game, the investment the player needs to make these jobs playable all throughout the game. And particularly I'm going to be looking at the 119, like today's game style metagame, not necessarily the level 75 cap or anything like that. So if you're coming and you play on a private server and you know that 75 is the cap, this video's not for you. I'm going to talk about the requirements that you need for all of the jobs in the game, every one of the jobs I'm going to discuss, and how easy or hard it's going to be for you to get to that point where you can actually play at 119 and do up to item level 150 content. So let's start at the top. These are the basic jobs that came out in the game, the very first 6 jobs in the game. These are the same 6 jobs you always have. You don't unlock these. You unlock everything outside of these 6 jobs. So Square Enix wants to make sure that these 6 jobs are always good. They should be perfect for every metagame up to year 1 of the launch of this game. Okay? Even before Rise of the Zilart, these are the 6 jobs that were all really perfect for the metagame. There were no weak jobs here. Okay, so if somebody says one of these 6 jobs is bad, they're talking about the current metagame, not necessarily at every stage in that job's existence. There does exist content for every job in this game that it is the best job for such content. Alright, so for example, Dragoon, Royal Jelly, BCNM, boom. There's no other better job to play. That's just one example. Puppetmaster, for a while, fighting Diabolos, Puppetmaster was the job to bring for that. So, like, basically everything on this list has something that it is perfect for. No bad jobs in this game, and I like that, but there are jobs that are shifted out of the meta. I'm not really going to take much more time to talk about these meta shifts. I'm just going to talk to you about all of the jobs, gear requirement, quantity, and quality, and so let's get into it. Warrior, from what I can tell, to play 119 Warrior, you need to get an Aeonic weapon, and that's about it. Warrior seems to be a really cheap job to play, but I probably would hold off on playing it until I have a Chango, and then I'll play the job. It seems like if you don't have Chango, then you shouldn't tell your friends you can bring a warrior to their event, because they're going to expect you to, at the very least, have a Chango. So the gear requirements for warrior is very open. It's a very easy job to get into. You get the 1 or 2 ultimates that people are requesting. I think another one, any RMEA on that exists for the job, you can bring it. But a lot of people, for Warrior in particular, they expect you to have a Chango. You would want to let them know if you don't have it and you want to join their party, for sure. Now, Monk. This is kind of a joke job now, unfortunately, because it was a very strong job for a long time. When I started my Taru, I actually... when I started Pwns a lot, I actually wanted to be a relic monk. Like, my goal was to get level 75 all jobs, which I did, get Matt's cap, which I did, and then have Aspari. That's what I wanted to do with the rest of my career on that game. Well, then I started playing other jobs like Beastmaster, Black Mage, every other job besides monk, and coming from someone who's played everything to 99, I currently have every job 99. The monk was probably the most lackluster after everything else was considered. Gear requirements for monk are very open. You're going to want to have your JSEs because they do give you certain buffs, like on your job abilities. You can look up all of this information depending on what job ability, what gear you want. There is a gear for that job ability, every job ability that this guy has. So it's very gear intense if you want to maximize on your ability to play the job, but it's cheap and it can be done in a day or 2. I would think your entire collection for monk could be finished in a couple of days of questing, and then you could be good to go. As far as getting an actual hand-to-hand ultimate, let's be honest, guys, you really can play monk with no weapon in the weapon slot at all, simply because your skill is your hand-to-hand skill, which you still have with no weapon equipped. So, other than the 119 perk of a weapon and the stats of that particular weapon, the skill plus of the particular weapon, You could play with any weapon. It doesn't matter what you get from Monk. There's so many different 119 things you could get from Monk. I'm not a Monk main, but I have dozens of things for Monk that are all good. No ultimates, so if you want an ultimate, I would say get any one of them. No one's going to ask you, or in particular, which ultimate that you're going to bring to the table when you tell them you're bringing your Monk. Alright? So let's move on to the White Mage. White Mage was a job that me personally, I strayed away from simply because I didn't want to be known as that guy, the guy that was just sitting in town waiting for a party invite and he had his White Mage ready to just basically support the party for the entire time. I wanted to be the face of the party in a lot of cases. I wanted to be the muscle and everything else in that party, the strategist, all this. White Mage doesn't have time for that. Coming from someone who does play White Mage and is very careful in his observation of other White Mages in the party, White Mage has no time to lead a party. If your leader is, let's just put it this way, if you have a White Mage in your party, which you probably do, you should not pass that person party leader at any point in the game. That person is not going to want to lead your party. That person is going to want to support you and your party, okay? So he is not the party leader. White Mage should never be a party leader. There's just too many things for them to worry about besides party management. And it's very intense. It's a very intense job to play. You should not play White Mage if you are new at the game. If you are coming to the game and you are fresh to Final Fantasy XI and you don't really know what you're doing, this is not the job for you to play. If you want to support someone, then do it on like Bard, or do it on Red Mage, or something like this. Don't bring a White Mage and not know how to play White Mage. The best way to get into this particular class is to watch others play White Mage. Invite White Mages to your party on a daily basis. Check them on a party-to-party basis to see multiple times what kinds of gear they switch into for different things and figure out what you need to do to actually play White Mage in someone else's party. You'll never play White Mage in your own party. Like I said, if you are in a party as a White Mage, you are definitely not the party leader. You are the party leader's support White Mage, okay? That's the life you live when you play this job. You have to be okay with it, or this is not the job for you to play. I would much rather invite someone else who is okay with it and on board and sticking to whatever plan was generated. Most of the times you have to tell the White Mage what to do. If they're a seasoned White Mage, you see that they have stars over their head, for example, because they've mastered their job and they have 119 gear and they're glowing. If they're any of that, chances are you don't have to tell them much about what to do unless it's a few key spells for like an ambuscade on a new month that they haven't done yet, something like that. Then you would probably want to let them know, hey, you need Kursna ready, do your macro or whatever you need to do to have Kursna ready. They need to know every spell that they're going to cast in every battlefield or they're going to fail. It's very important to know what kind of gear they're going to need to bring or get before the party even starts. You sometimes know that your Link Shell's planning an event in a day or two. You have time to get specific gear requirements met. If you're thinking about bringing a White Mage and you're missing a piece of armor, you should take that time to get it before that party, or you should learn from your mistakes when you finally do show up to the party as the White Mage and you're undergeared, that you need to leave the party and then go get that gear and come back for the next event that Link Shell does, for example, or whatever pickup group shout you see in town. My point is, it's very gear intense. There's much like Monk, there's job abilities on White Mage, and all of them have gear JSEs for those job abilities. None of them are particularly important, unlike Monk and Dragoon, which we'll talk about. But for JA augmentation anyway. But there is a lot of stuff that you need to have, and you need to have a lot of knowledge about how to remove curse. Any enfeebling ability on your party members, you need to know the Na spells for these and how to use them, and if you have gear that augments the ability of success rate on those Na spells, you need to use that too. Multiple times you'll see yourself failing removing things like Doom, and don't get discouraged because that's not necessarily on you. A lot of times the Doom is just really, really hard to get rid of on a player, and they know that, and you should also know that, but if you don't, then just be advised. It's not your fault if somebody dies from Doom unless you're not actually trying to remove his curse, basically, his Doom effect. That's when it's on you. Okay, now, I want to move on because I feel like I've talked a lot about White Mage. I feel like I didn't say a whole lot about what you need to have on White Mage because I'm still in the process of getting everything for White Mage. I will say that I have a huge list of things I already have gotten, and I'm not even halfway there. So that's the point I'm trying to make. There's a lot of things to do. You need to do your homework for this job. And you probably want to consider getting a Yag Rush. It is a mythic club for White Mage. I really don't think there's much else you need. Once you have that, you could come naked to a party and use the Yag Rush, and people will still invite you, okay? So it is gear intense, but it's more macro intense and spell, like knowing the spells, when to use them, etc. And make sure you have re-raise on at all times. Like, before you even function as a healer, you need the re-raise, like, period. That's it. It's you re-raise, then you play your job. Period. Okay, so we're done talking about this job for now. I hope you got something from that. Let's talk about Black Mage next. One of the original jobs. It's always been good throughout history. Everyone who's ever talked about this job in the game, they were right. No one's ever said anything about Black Mage that I disagreed with throughout all of my YouTubing days. So Black Mage, you should know how this job functions by now, so I'm not going to speak too much about that. I will mention there are very few gear requirements. A lot of the JA augment stuff, I feel like as a Master Black Mage, is not important. Most of the stuff is just, it has to be 119 and then it's okay. But there's nothing that's like super good all the time on Black Mage. There's just so many gear pieces you could get at 119 that are all good. If you get some stuff from Omen, I would say it's best in slot, like, period. Like, if there's any stuff for Black Mage that you get from Omen, it's best in slot for Black Mage. Other than that, it doesn't really matter what you get. And I would say the same for all of these jobs on this list, by the way. If it's Omen gear, that simply has better quality than everything else below that in lower tiers, other than the 150 stuff that you could get from, like, Breeze and Jima bosses. Okay? Like, helms and stuff. Okay. Black Mage, money requirement, non-existent. Basically non-existent. You get the spells, either quest them or buy them or whatever. You master the spell skills, like your skill list needs to be mastered on everything, and then you play this job in any party at any point. They'll basically let you in. I went into a Dynamis Link shell that didn't even speak my language, and I was able to function as their Black Mage for about a decade, okay? In the 75 caps, alright? So, Black Mage is not a hard job to play once you have the spells. You just need the spells. Sleep Good 2 is something you're going to want to get. As long as you have all of the spells, you can play this job. You don't even need the JSEs. You could get them. They're not bad. The lock styles are pretty sweet, especially on Tarus, because, you know, I'm a Taru guy. But I got the myth. I guess the Mithra costumes are also a second favorite of mine for Black Mage JSEs. But let's stay on point. The money requirement for this job, blah. It's free. It's a free job. There's no ultimate for this job that is necessarily good. You could get a Lathy from whatever boss drops Lathy. I forget which one it is. It's an item level 119 staff, just like all the other ones, and it's just as good as a JSE, maybe 5% weaker than a JSE, like if I had to guess. Let's just go ahead and say that this job's free to play and move on. I don't think there's much to talk about right there. That's a pretty free job to play. Red Mage. Okay, everyone, you need to turn your ears on for a second when I talk about Red Mage. Red Mage is a very hard job to play. It always has been. It's always been an advanced job. It is more advanced than White Mage, which is the second most advanced job on this list of 6 from the original game, okay? Red Mage is just brutally advanced. You need to have a working knowledge of all the spells. You have to have all of the spells. I will say that there are quite a few spells you don't use 99% of the time, but every spell you have on Red Mage is used at least once in your Red Mage career, and by not having it, you could potentially lose the events in your Red Mage career that you actually went to because you simply didn't have the spell. So get all of the spells. Get all of the spells in this game. I have every single spell in this game. It was not cheap, but it was worth it. There's not a single bad spell in this game. So, assuming that you have all of the spells and all of your skills are mastered, this is all of the legwork that you have to do. Beyond that, Red Mage is probably the most gear-intense job out of all 22 of these jobs that I'm going to talk about. There's so many pieces of gear you need on Red Mage. Like, I built everything on Thief, which we'll talk about next, and that JSE 15 out of 15 is kind of good, but still there's pieces that are just bad, period. Like, just end of sentence bad. Red Mage doesn't have that problem. Red Mage, every piece of gear for Red Mage is good. There's not any such thing as a bad piece of Red Mage equipment. The more Red Mage equipment you can get your hands on, the better your Red Mage is going to be. Period. Now, I guess you could argue the same goes for Black Mage with elemental magic, but I'm just going to say that you could still win the content with an undergeared Black Mage. If you have an undergeared Red Mage, you can't win the content. More often than not, you will fail the content if the Red Mage in the party is undergeared. Alright? So the gear choices that the Red Mage makes. The reason why Gear Swap exists as an add-on for Windower is most likely because of Red Mage. There's so many equip sets that you can make for Red Mage. Honestly, if you played Vanilla Client, you are main Red Mage or you don't touch that job. Because all 100 of your equip sets could potentially be Red Mage equip sets, and you are limited to those 100 equip sets in the vanilla shell of Final Fantasy XI. So you could do this vanilla Red Mage deal, but it would suck for you if you wanted to play anything else other than Red Mage. So, I guess I can't really talk to you about any particular gear on Red Mage because we could be here all day. Just know that to play this job, you need all the spells and skills done. You need all of the gear that you can get your hands on. That's it. If you can remember that, you're good. Alright? That said, I'm going to get a Merglaze for this job. And probably an Almace for this job in the next 2 years. I'm gonna just guess that I'll have both of those, and I think those are pretty good for different reasons. And I'm not gonna make this video discussion about what reasons I have for making specific RMEA equipment, ultimate weapons, but I will say that there's not a such thing as a bad piece of equipment on Red Mage. Therefore, all of the RMEA for Red Mage is gonna be good, alright? You can not dispute this, alright? I would use all of the RMEAs for Red Mage. I wish I had any of them. Okay, they're fantastic to have. So, pick your poison, do it for a good reason, use your gut on this, and do your homework, and then I think you can play this job. That said, do not bring this job with no gear. If you have no gear, you don't play this job. You need to get so much gear for this job before you should even consider playing it professionally in a party for 150 content. Done. Alright? Let's talk about Thief now. Thief is everyone's starting job. I'm going to argue that if you ever played Final Fantasy XI, you probably played Thief, and that was probably one of the first jobs you selected to play. Simply because it's unlocked already, you don't even have to quest it. It's different because it has dual wield, and I guess Monk does too, but you would play Monk for different reasons. Thief is pretty cool, pokey things. I can run really fast. I also make money faster. Fast, in a game that has notoriously been known for being a slow-paced game. Having a speed advantage in Final Fantasy XI has always appealed to Final Fantasy XI players. So everyone finds Thief appealing. For that reason alone. As far as the gear requirements go and the investment you need to make in Thief, it's so easy to play this job. You don't need gear. You don't. There's nothing you need on Thief to play Thief. You don't need any ultimates at all. If you have them, that's great. You are fine without any of them. Your job is to support the party in damage control. Like, you sneak attack, trick attack the tank. That's it. They don't care what you have because you have a 100% chance of accuracy when you do sneak attack or trick attack. So, boom, this job is very, very simple to be played in a party. Any party that you want to bring it to. There are exceptions if you want to play next level Thief. Let's talk about next level Thief for a moment, okay? Thief is a broken job. It's just straight up broken. Everything else on this list, you'll probably argue if you've played it for 15 years, you've also broken that job. I'm not going to dispute that at all. I can guarantee if you've played any of these 22 jobs on this list for as many years as it's been out, you're gonna be an expert, especially if you play every day and you're currently like top-notch gear, okay? But Thief, oh my god, you guys, at 119, Thief is just an insane job. It's period, end of sentence, insane. It can do anything. What do you need Thief to do? Avoid spells? It can do that. It has so much magic evasion gear that it has access to. If you meet the gear requirements for a mage fight, like for a fight against a mage, then you can bring your Thief. That said, you have to have the gear requirements to actually fight a mage as a Thief. If your opponent is a mage, you can't play Thief under-geared. So the thief does have gear requirements depending on certain content. Like, whatever content it might be, there might be something that you need to think about before you join the party. So ambuscade changing from month to month, if you're going to bring the Thief, you really need to know what's happening in the battle before you bring the Thief, because you might forget some gear. You might not make certain gear checks. There are a lot of gear checks on Thief depending on content versus mages. Alright? So that just needs to be noted. With that said, you can tank on Thief. You are a Paladin when you play Thief. You put the enmity wherever you want it when you play Thief. A lot of players don't know this. A lot of players are probably thinking, what are you talking about right now? Dude, you're saying Thief can tank? Like, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't care what content it is. I tanked as a bard in Valkyrie Dunes at level 10, alright, for my party. So, I'll say whatever the hell I want. If I say you can tank, you can tank. I tanked a 119 very difficult ambuscade as a Geomancer subbing warrior. It has been done. I did it, okay? So if I'm telling you you can tank on Thief, you better believe you can tank on Thief. There's so many battlefields I've tanked on as Thief where I honestly can't think of any better job to tank on because they're all too slow and I time out. If I bring my Paladin, I end up timing out of these contents in Rizanjima and Esha. If I bring my Ninja, I'm like still timing out. If I bring my Rune Fencer, I know I have 4 times as much damage as my Paladin, but still I end up timing out, or something doesn't go perfectly and I die because Rune Fencer is very difficult to pilot correctly. But if I play Thief, it's very easy. You simply just put on the equip set of gear that has X defense or evasion that you're looking for. If it's a mage fight, you magic evasion gear set, done. If it's a physical damage taken minus, done. Like, you just do this and you play the job. You sub warrior and you just provoke, and then you still have hate. If you're soloing, you don't even need to do that. You just sub ninja because your trusts aren't taking hate off of you. Period. They're just not going to be able to take hate off of your 119 Thief at all, unless you have a trust that happens to be a Paladin and he uses provoke. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. With that said, when I tank on Thief, I do it really well if my entire trust system is all support. If they're all Geo Bubbles, and they're all Bards, and they're Red Mages, Yorn, Orin, White Mage for the win, because he's literally the only Unity Concord anyone should use. Yorin, Orin, representing Yorn, Orin, in this bitch, okay? Shantoto is not a Unity leader, unfortunately. So, you're an Orin, because why? Because he's a White Mage. Why is that important? Because White Mage is a support class, and you need support when you're soloing. duh. Like, people are like, Aparuru is so good. I don't want to really get on this tangent, so I'm just going to stop right here and just say Yorin Orin, okay? That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Other than that, just be smart when you're playing Thief. Make sure your trusts are good and they complement your playstyle, and then you'll be fine. And you can tank. You won't lose in midi in any situation. When you're in a party situation, typically you're not tanking. There are times, though. There will be times where you may need to tank as a thief for a party. I can think of a certain few examples. Let's say you have a returning player in your party, and he needs one very tricky piece of equipment that comes from a battlefield content in Esha somewhere, and he just simply can't do it himself. He's tried, he's used every trust that he has access to, which is probably not many, and he just simply can't do the content. 119 plus is just too difficult for him. In that case, you could bring your 150 plus geared thief to his battlefield, and you can play in his party with your trusts. You could just take party leader and summon the trusts and, like, get the boss popped, do what you need to do. In most cases, your trusts are probably going to be better than a returning player, so I'll just not talk too much about why you should have party leader there in this situation, but you would want to. My trusts, I have all of them, all of the trusts in the game other than Mumora is the one I'm missing. Fuck her, I don't even care. So yeah, I would want my trusts. And I have cheer effects that also make my trusts better, right? So there's a lot of things to consider for that reason. But you will be able to tank on Thief. That's my point. In this hypothetical, with this returning player joining your party just to get a gear drop, you can solo it on Thief. You can apply the Treasure Hunter values that you need because you have Treasure Hunter 14 as a Master Thief. You can get up to Treasure Hunter 14. It's very hard to hit 14 in 15 minutes. When you're soloing, you usually need 2 Thieves for this. Just note that. If you're trying to get TH14, you probably want a second Thief in the party, or maybe even a third, but 2 is usually good. And other than that, you can do whatever you want on Thief. Any content it is. If you have the gear requirements for whatever role you want to play the Thief as, then you can do it. I'm going to say you can main heal as the Thief. It's crazy, but if you have the gear requirements, it could be done. Main healing is not that hard if the rest of the players in your party are all glowing and fucking master jobs, right? So doesn't really matter what you're doing to support them if they're better geared than you are, right? So arguably, sub jobs are totally irrelevant. Just pick one based on the party setup that will work with that party and complement that party's playstyle, and then there you go. Re-raise and Kursna is clutch sometimes, so don't knock it subbing White Mage, dude. Like, whatever. Thief White Mage is not bad. Magic defense is a thing, okay? And White Mage sub has the most magic defense in this game, note. Okay, so doesn't really matter. I've had some amazing experiences with this job, and I could be here all day talking about them. I want to save some time, so let's move on and just say that it doesn't matter what you get for Thief. Thief's always going to be good no matter what you have, period, no matter what. Paladin. This is where things get interesting, because you probably might know me as one of the best Paladins in the world. And I don't want to pat myself on the back because I did my homework on this job and tried really hard to get to the point where I have all of the best gear for Paladin. Like, this job is complete. In my eyes, there's nothing else I need to do on this job whatsoever. I can play it. I've beat every boss in the game with this job up to this point, and I have no problem playing this job for any content. Does not matter. That said, I've noticed a few things. As far as gear requirements go, there's pretty much none. You need to eventually get an Aegis, or you need a really competent White Mage in your party. If you have either of those two things, you'll be fine. Ideally, you want to bank on the fact that every other player in your party is dumb or undergeared. If you have that logic, then you'll realize really quick that it makes the most sense. Worst case scenario, my party sucks. If I bring all of the gear for the party on my Paladin, it doesn't matter if my party sucks. That is true. It's more so true with Rune Fencer than it is with Paladin, and also Ninja, which we'll also talk about. But Paladin is a DPS. If you are geared for it, you can keep up with basically anyone on DPS as Paladin. You will also not die, like, ever.
Alright? Especially if you're competent. If you know that you need to blink into your tank set because your boss is charging the boss is charging some stupid ability, then you blink into your tank set, turn off your DPS for a split second. Doesn't even matter that you have the wrong sword on. In some cases, you might have a different sword when you're DPSing. For example, I have a Calidbog, so I might not have a shield. I might just be holding my Calidbog and TPing with it. Depending on what boss is doing what ability, I might actually just say, you know what, I'll just take it and put my tank gear on with no shield and Calidbog for the win. But in most cases, I will blink out of my Calidbog and put on my Burtgang and my Aegis, and I'll sit in those two pieces of gear while the boss is doing his ability. Unfortunately, I lose the TP that way, but I do have a perk. If I'm ready for it, I can actually convert the TP into MP with one of my abilities on Paladin. I'm having a brain fart as to which ability that is, but there's an ability that converts to TP every 10 minutes from TP to MP, and it's not bad. Like, it's pretty quick at capping out your mana bar, even as a Taru. It's a good ability, pretty good. And you have medication that you can fall back on as well. I'm looking at high elixirs. I'm looking at Vile Elixir and Vile Elixir +1. And Super Re-Raiser is always a good one to have as well. You can get it from Ambuscade every month. And High Re-Raiser and Re-Raiser. Because simply put, you don't have those abilities naturally as a Paladin. You don't have Re-Raise. So if your White Mage is non-existent or doesn't have Arise, then you're pretty much fucked if you go down. Whereas if you had the Re-Raise in the first place, your White Mage wouldn't have to stop to cast Arise on you. You can't expect your White Mage to always have all the answers. If you want to really win all of your content that you're doing as the Paladin, just bring the fucking gear. Bring the medicine. Bring everything that you need for whatever battle you're doing. So as far as requirements on gear space, quantity of items needed for this job is kind of up there. I'm not going to lie. Depending on the content and your personal preference on how geared or over-geared or over-geared you are for the content, you might bring more stuff. Like, I bring three sources of Re-Raisers in my inventory alone, and I'm not even planning on dying, right? But that's just a natural thing. So there's a lot of space you need to dedicate to playing a lot of jobs in this game, but Paladin's a little bit more important because, like, if it dies, you're going to lose. Re-Raise is the difference between winning and losing in a lot of cases. So you have gear that you can wear on Paladin. A lot of people are not aware of this. But if you beat Shinryu, you can actually get Twilight armor. You have a Twilight helm and a Twilight breastplate, I think it's called, or Twilight mail or something like that. Really cool lock style, both of these, and they're fantastic for their auto re-raise ability. If you're wearing them, yeah, you might not be item level 119 anymore, but you might be rocking 2 ultimate weapons or a shield, a freaking Aegis, and a Burtgang, like something like this. You're not going to care about having your item level drop a few notches if every other piece of gear you have on is like next level awesome, like Omen ain't got shit on me, then you're good. It doesn't matter. You could put the Twilight set on and you could still play the game. Like, if you know you're gonna die in an Omen battle, you could just put the Twilight gear on and continue to play. You die, now you're a zombie. You get back up weakened, and you keep your Twilight gear on, and you zombie tank. And you can do this still, simply because you have the Twilight set. So, note, if you're playing Paladin, take the time to get those 2 pieces of gear from Shinryu. He's not that hard to solo. You can definitely duo him with anyone on any server, so just go do it and get that Twilight gear, because even though it's not metagame, even though it's not used every single day, there are times where I'm glad that I had it on me when I'm in content. Mostly looking at Omen final bosses here, especially if you're underprepared for it, because it makes the difference between winning and losing that content. It's becoming less important now that Omen's been out for so long, but there was a time where a lot of people were new to Omen, and just getting to the boss was a feat in and of itself, and it still kind of is for a lot of players in a lot of situations, simply because RNG is a thing. So basically, the Twilight gear saved me quite a bit on those contents in the early development of Omen. So I can think of a lot of reasons to bring that stuff, and I have done it in the past, so I can consider that item to be a safe choice for future Battlefield content. If a new system of Battlefield content comes out, I'm not going to knock anyone for coming to the Battlefield prepared with the Twilight set. So just get it. It's so easy to get, there's no reason not to. There's so many reasons why you should get that item, those two items. And that said, I'm really hoping that there's new content that comes out in this game where they actually come up with an item level version of the Twilight set that has the auto re-raise effect and possibly make it all jobs, or something like this would be really cool. It would make the level 90 equipment obsolete, but let's put it this way, it's already kind of obsolete because only like 4 jobs in the whole entire game can use it, and they usually don't bring it when they play those jobs simply because they don't have it or have never ever fought Shinryu in their entire career. So yeah, dude, it's an accomplishment having that gear, but they're making everything else easy with every update in this game, so they might as well stick to that plan, not half-ass it like they do half the other things in this game, right? And just stick to the plan where you're making the game easier for players. That means if there's a piece of gear that exists that's really difficult or tricky to get, and it's not even optimal, like the Twilight set with auto re-raise, the game developers might as well make a piece of gear that is optimal, that has that ability. That's just my thoughts on that. I'm pretty passionate about that sort of thing in this game because I kind of do want to retire my Twilight set, like I've retired so many pieces of gear in this game. Unfortunately, that was originally not the game's intention. That's why they have so many pieces of gear to begin with, and why they keep giving you more inventory, because their original intention was always to like make it to where you could play the entire game and get all the stuff in the game, and it was all going to be good. Nothing was going to be better than something else, and for the most part, they've kept to that, but they're with the item level 119, the pressure is on, the heat is on, and the company just buckles at certain points, and they make the nerfs, and they basically make equipment obsolete in this game. So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about in this game is probably going to be obsolete at some point, even. All right, so I talked a lot about Paladin, and this video is going to be quite long, as you can probably guess. So I don't want to spend much more time on this, just noting the equipment, the actual equipment that you need to play this job is kind of not there, but if you want to be optimal and actually have the party rely on you as a win condition at all times, then you're going to want to get everything you can for that job. But in most cases, the party is basically hoping that they're going to be the star. So if you're just wanting to be suboptimal, you can get away with it with this job. You really don't even need high quality stuff. You could play it with just normal quality stuff. You could play it not even item level 119. It doesn't matter how you play this job. If you're a Paladin, you're probably all that your party needs to get the content 1. But if they underestimated the content, then simply because you're a geared Paladin, you could change the result of that content for them. You could make their experience better if you're prepared to kick ass and take names. So that's how I feel about the job. Again, I'm biased because my goal is to finish my entire set on this job, and I have already. I've got Khalid Bog done, I've got Burt Gang and Aegis done, and I've got all the JSCs that I would want, all the Omen gear that I would want. There's nothing that I need for this job. So I'm a little bit biased, but being that kind of a player on Paladin, I feel like you don't need most of the stuff that you could bring. But I have had some clutch outcomes, simply because I brought such and such. Right. Let's talk about Dark Knight next. He's on the list. Well, that was a quick talk. Let's talk about Beastmaster. No, I'm just kidding. Totally trolling you guys. Alright, so Dark Knight, I am biased because numbers don't lie, I guess, in my mind, and no one plays this job, and I do a lot of searches on most servers I play on, and I just don't see people playing this job. So, meh. Dark Knight is just a thing. He's always been the yin to Paladin's yang, so to speak. They came out in the same update. They're basically like those kinds of jobs, you know what I mean? They complement each other in a lot of regards as far as what they do, and the game designed it to be that way, but then they evolved differently, you know what I'm saying? So now they're really not complementing each other like they used to back in the day, like white versus black, light versus dark, etc. The Dark Knight kind of spiraled out of control and became another warrior, right? Whereas the Paladin was supposed to be a very specific warrior, and the Dark Knight was supposed to be a complement to the Paladin. You could argue that they both evolved from warrior, and I'm going to say that that's still true. But the Paladin has basically stopped evolving, you know what I mean? Like, the Paladin got to a point where, hey, I'm a warrior with a shield, what's up? Like, I don't even need anything in my other hand. I'll just sit with this shield and freaking YOLO. I have a bell in my other hand. I don't care. I'm just a dude that's going to block everything you're going to do. And that's what they stopped at that point. They're done. They've got it figured out, okay, for their role in the party. The Dark Knight never has it figured out. Never will a Dark Knight go to a party in some random content that they may or may not have done before and be like, guys, I know exactly what my plan is. No. When they go in there, they button mash, and they don't even think about it, what they're doing at any point. If you play Dark Knight, you're probably button mashing. This job is kind of... I guess the reason why it's not so popular is because there's less skill involved and more RNG results involved, that it's more of a luck-based job than anything, so it really doesn't have an established spot in any metagame. Like, at any point in its history, I can say that this has been true. For most cases, I can't think of anything. Give me a comment if you feel like I'm wrong. But I feel like this job just exists simply because they wanted another dynamic to this expansion set when they released the Paladin, okay? So that's how I feel about it. As far as job requirements, gear requirements, there are none. You don't need anything to play this job. Your goal is to just DPS, so you need to be item level 119 in an item level 119 party, whereas if you were in an item level 75 party, or just a level 75 party, then you would just need level 75 gear. So as long as your gear is the same level as your party members' gear, you're not undergeared. Like, period. That's it. As long as you can match them on level, you're not going to be undergeared. You'll start becoming undergeared when you join parties with people item level 119 and you're not quite there on your Dark Knight. That's when you're undergeared. Only slightly. I mean, arguably a large margin depending on what 119s they may or may not have. But for the most part, you can eventually get there simply by doing the ambuscades to get the 119 gear quite easily and just playing Dark Knight, button mashing your heart out. Alright? In your free time, you're probably going to want to go do Abyssy or something along these lines to get some ultimate weapon, but let's be honest, it doesn't matter what you get. I might be a bit biased on this because I don't play the job that often. I would argue that the most popular item choices, which are good, in my opinion, and I guess they're popular choice, so they must be good, are Apocalypse for Scythe, and Quietus is another good scythe that I see a lot. And for Greatsword, I would say Caladbog. Just period, end of sentence, Caladbog. Why? Because I'm biased and I play Paladin and I already have it. So that's an obvious choice to make, right? So, boom. Yeah, I'm the only guy that ever played this game and got a Caladbog for a Paladin and not a Dark Knight. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even play Dark Knight. Like, screw that. Screw that job. But I have the Caladbog, and the Caladbog is one of the best greatswords to play with the Dark Knight. So, that said, you could also invest in the Aeonic for this job. The name escapes me at the moment. I want to say it's a scythe. It's a crazy-looking scythe that reminds me of Soul Eater, the anime. Not the ability from this game. But, yeah, so maybe it was Quietus. Maybe I'm thinking it's Quietus. But I was thinking that the either the Empyrean or the Mythic was also a scythe, and it was named Quietus. That's what I thought. So I didn't do all my homework on this. We could click on this and see what its ultimates are, I guess. They'll probably be somewhere on here. Nah, no time. No time. You guys do your homework on this and figure out what they are and get back to me, I guess. But for this job, I feel like it's quite an easy job to play. I feel like it doesn't really matter what you bring. Quite cheap job to play. And I wouldn't knock anyone for bringing a Dark Knight to the party if they had no gear for that job at all. Like, I would be fine with that. I would still bank on me being the win condition, of course, no matter what. Even if I'm Paladin, I'll just be like, yeah, I'm just going to out DPS the Dark Knight really quick. It's cool. It's cool. It's K. I'll be tanking. You're all going to just be dead. I'll solo it. Don't worry. Done before. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So yeah, I don't care. I'm a bit biased, but most people might be more passionate about Dark Knight, and they'll just be like, you know what, if you play that job, you better have this such and such gear. Oh, you don't play that job? Nah. Let's come on. There's just so many pieces of gear. I have a lot of them, if you don't believe me. There's so many pieces of gear Dark Knight can just use naturally for item level 119 content. So weapons included, RMEA, what's that? Like, nobody fucking cares. All right, Chango on Warrior is more important than X item on Dark Knight. Okay, period. At least from the current metagame, that has been my conclusion that I've drawn. Let's move on. Let's move on to Beastmaster. Oh, Beastmaster. Okay, listen, guys. People will say a lot of different things in this game about Beastmaster. They're all right. Most people's opinion on this job are stemmed directly from their personal experiences with the job, what they've noticed over 15 years, and there's no way I would tell them, being a player in this game, knowing what they've been through as well, they probably have a similar story to my own. I would not argue that they are wrong if they are very passionate when they tell me Beastmaster sucks, or if they are very passionate when they tell me Beastmaster is awesome. All of the experiences of every player in this game is going to be different. Let me just give you my experience on Beastmaster, and you can draw your own conclusion. I would say play this job, just like I would say play Thief. Alright? The two easiest jobs to play in this game are Thief and Beastmaster. I would still say Beastmaster's the cheapest, but you do have to make a small investment. It's quite an easy investment to make. You need to buy a high quality broth for 119, probably a couple different ones if you want to be any good. And you need to have all of the right jug pets, period. Like, that's it. But that money requirement's almost non-existent. Even the high-quality stuff could be done in a single day. If not, your Link Shell might just give them to you because it's no sweat. The job is very easy to play, and it has an immediate return on investment. When you play this job, just like when you play Thief, you will leave the party satisfied every single time. You will always leave a party with more gear, more loot, more sparks, more anything. Doesn't matter. Your progression is linear on Beastmaster. There is no setback to this job. So if you're just looking for fun over time, then this is probably the job for you, because that's what you're going to get with Beastmaster. Just like Thief, you're going to get fun over time. Arguably Black Mage and some other jobs too. But basically, this job, you just play it, and you keep getting better, and you keep getting better and better stuff for it forever. And there's never any bested slot anything, because to argue a little bit about it, there is no main Beastmasters. Like, Beastmaster mains don't exist. Like, somebody's maining some other job, some meta job, like Paladin, or Red Mage, or White Mage, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, anything on this list that you hear me tell you is like a metagame choice, and it's always being played, that's the job that they're going to be investing on, so they can keep up in the metagame. Like Summoner, for example. Summoner's a metagame job. Ranger, even. But Beastmaster's not. Beastmaster is simply an inexpensive solo job. So if your goal is fun over time, then you play this job, and that's what you get. Right? As far as requirements on gear, again, there are none. You're going to think one day you're going to think, oh man, I really need to get a Gutler on Beastmaster because in the cutscene it talks to me. Like, holy shit, that's awesome. Nostalgia for the win. But then the next day you're like, well, Gutler sucks. Like, why don't I get a mythic? Because simply put, it boosts up my pet, and I would rather have an entire set of equipment that does that in certain situations than an entire set of equipment minus an axe that does that. You know what I mean? Like, so just because the ultimates don't have that ability to boost any of the pet stats, that's one of the reasons I don't want them. Period. So, situational RMEAs on Beastmaster. Every piece of gear on Beastmaster is very, very, very situational. There's like niche pieces for days on this job. And you don't need any of them to play the job. Like, some of them are great. Oh my god, my Call Beast is going to be better. Or, what is it, the other one? My reward is so good. I have so much reward gear now. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares, dude. Like, you just go into Esha and you use your temp item and it fills up your pet's HP anyway, so, like, nobody fucking cares about your gear. So, it doesn't matter. So, my point is, very, very cheap, easy job to pilot. Beastmaster. Simple as that. Does not matter what you have. There will be times where there are some nostalgic link shells that want to pop into existence for whatever reason at whatever season, and they're just like, you know what, we want to be a pet link shell for nostalgia, and we're going to kill everything in the game, including tier 4s, with our pet jobs, and you better believe them when they say that they can, and they will do it. And it's going to be fun for everybody. A headache for the link shell leader, but it's going to be fun for everybody. Yeah, so those kinds of people will tell you, no, you need this, you need this, you need this, or you just don't, just stay away from me. And what they're trying to get at is the content that they're doing requires niche pieces of gear. Everyone has a story like that in this game, so don't feel like you, as a Beastmaster, need to have anything anyone else tells you to get, because your gameplay as Beastmaster might be completely different from theirs. Your end-game goals for the job might be completely different or non-existent from theirs. Don't dedicate inventory space, precious inventory space, to this job if you play many, many other jobs that you like already, simply because you could be going on for days for Beastmaster gear. So, tread with caution on this job. Just know that you can get better at any point. Done. Let's talk about another job on this list, Bard. Bard is a very interesting job. I'm just going to go ahead and quote my comment on my friend Hunting for Games, a YouTuber that does some very awesome videos, which are awe-inspiring and just inspiring in general, to get the ball rolling on what they did when they released this job. They basically later on came out and announced, they being Square Enix, announced that Bard was their baby. Like, literally their baby. Like, they knew when they released this job that it was done correctly. There have been a lot of games in the past that have tried to play a Bard class, like incorporate a Bard type class in their game, and they've failed miserably. Square Enix is included on that list. They've tried. They even claim that they've tried to actually make Bard a thing before in other games for whatever franchise, like whatever series of games that they made. They wanted to do a Bard type thing, but they could never get it. When they got to this game, they nailed it. They straight up nailed it, guys. Like, everything about Bard is perfect. There's not a single thing that was not carefully thought through and considered, and there's no better outcome for this job as opposed to the one that you currently have in the metagame right now. It is the perfect Bard of MMOs in general, okay? That's what Square Enix says. I can't dispute that because I have yet to find a better Bard outside of Final Fantasy XI. It just hasn't happened yet, okay? So until I see a Bard from another game besides Final Fantasy XI that is better at Bard than Final Fantasy XI Bards are, I'm going to say this is the best this is the best game to pick up if you want to be a Bard. Period. Like, you're not going to get better. You want to play any MMO in the world that has a Bard in it, this is the MMO you play. You might want to pick up 14 or 15 or whatever the other MMO that they've come out with, because it's more up to date and it's kind of stemming off the same ideas and principles as this game. So that might be the future for you, but right now, this Bard, right here, from Final Fantasy XI, it's just an amazing job, you guys. Where to start on Bard? I guess we could talk about spells. Let's just say that all the spells are good, plus or minus 5%, like Pining Nocturne, Goblin Gavotte. These are very situational spells that you just simply don't need 99.999% of the time, but a lot of the spells on Bard are going to be good for you. in a lot of situations. And if you have all of them unlocked, if you've learned all of them and you've completed your spellbook, which I would recommend, again, just like I recommended with Black Mage, Red Mage, and White Mage, if you've completed your spellbook on Bard, then you're good to go, dude. Like, you can just do whatever you want. At that point, from that point forward, you are literally just playing career Bard at any point. Like, even if you're not a career Bard, even if your main job is not Bard, if you have a full spellbook and you join a party, everyone is going to assume that you are a career Bard, and you're just going to not prove them wrong because Bard is so broken that they can't even notice that you suck at Bard when you play this job, okay? So even if you do suck at Bard, as long as you have the spells, like, no one's going to call you on it. Pretty much ever, alright? There might be some assholes that might call somebody on some stupid little trivial thing if they notice it, but when you have a Bard in the party, typically the content is just progressing so fast that it's very difficult for anyone to really keep track of one thing or another, and Bard is mostly, in my experience, overlooked. If I've made a mistake and I, as the Bard, know I've made a mistake, I'm the only one that ends up knowing that I made that mistake. Like, that's what I'm getting at. So, the job's broken, you guys. It's just so good. It's so strong. Let's talk about skill. If you're joining a party and your skill is not mastered when you play Bard, they will notice. Period. Your opponents, your teammates will notice that you are a Gimp Bard right away if your skills are not mastered. More so than they will notice that you're a Gimp Bard if you don't have a complete spellbook. It's very important that both of those things are done, more so the skills than the spells, because if you have one or two spells that you're going to need for the entire party, but your skill sucks, then none of those spells do anything for anyone. Well, now there's a problem. You know what I mean? So, just something to consider. There are bards that are better than other bards in this game. Lots and lots of tiers of bard that exists in this game. There's a few jobs that I'll talk about on this list that kind of have the same general idea, where when I say there are different tiers of them, I'm saying you've got like A class, B class, and C class bards that are all acceptable to 99% of the parties. Then you have S class and double S class and etc. on this, and there is a difference. Simply put, there is a huge difference, and the more money you pump into this job, the more people will notice you as a career bard, basically, and like a super good bard. All right. So now I guess that lets us into the next discussion about bard, which is the investment that you need to make. Unlike Beastmaster and Thief, bard is not an easy job to play. It is an investment, upfront investment, and there is not very much payoff, aside from headache after headache after headache as you progress in your bard character development to the point where you're actually a competent and acceptable bard in the metagame. Up to that point, it's going to suck for you. So be advised, if you want to pick this job up, you're going to make a lot of people mad, like, period. Like, people will get mad at you if you just picked up bard for the first time and joined their party. Or you've been playing bard for less than 6 months and you joined their party. Up to the point where you have no RMEA. Like, when you finally get your Yallarhorn, which you have to get on this job, it is a requirement. Much like Chango on Warrior, okay? Much like Aegis, arguably, on Paladin. I could say you don't need it, but I have so much other gear besides it to say that. So, basically, yeah. Chango, Aegis, Yagrush on the White Mage, I guess Almace on the Red Mage if you want to be super good. I mean, or Murglace or something. Depends on what you want. And then Burgang, as well as Aegis, if you want to be a hardcore paladin. And then nothing on these jobs. When it gets to Bard, though, for ultimates, oh my god, there's so many. There's so many things you need for Bard. The gear requirements just are never ending with this job, okay? And you have to do it. It's an upfront cost. And there's no payoff until you get it all done. It's just a nightmare, okay? Like, you better know some RMTs, is what I'm getting at. Or you better just spend a lot of time in just getting there. Because Yallarhorn is an investment. It's the easiest one out of all of them that you could do. And it alone is an investment. Then you have to worry about Moonbow Necklace, high quality version of that. Like, that's 100+ million gil right there. Then you need to worry about mythics. Carnwinen is like one of the best mythics in this game. It is a Bard dagger. Like, you need it at some point. It's an investment. You see where I'm going with this? Like, I don't have all this shit done on my Bard, and my Bard's pretty fucking hot. Like, awesome Bard. Still doesn't have all this shit that you need on Bard. So it's trash tier Bard, but it's still broken. You know what I'm getting at? Like, so there's so many different classes of bards out there that you could make in this game. You could just be a career bard forever, and year after year you will notice that you're just infinitely leaps and bounds better than you were the year before at bard, simply because the investment just is linear. It just keeps scaling. Every single time you log in and do something on this job, you just add more and more shit until you have all the things, which, spoiler alert, not gonna happen. You're not gonna have all the bard stuff. There's so much shit for this job. Just like Red Mage. Like, there's just too much. There's too much shit to get. Bard is just, oh, my inventory. Oh, it hurts. It hurts so bad. Yeah, you get my point, okay? So, what else do you really need on Bard? Really quick. You need a Dardablia, which is an Empyrean, and you probably, before you get any of that, need to just go ahead and get your Obero weapon right away. It's still good. Everything else included. So, what's it called? Is it Terpsichord? I don't know. It's the Obero weapon that you can get, though. So, that's all I really want to talk about for Bard, because it hurts. It just hurts, okay? We've got to move on. There's just too much shit for Bard. Just know that there's just too much shit for this broken-ass job. Okay, so let's talk about Ranger now. Okay, Ranger. Oh, that was a quick chat. Let's talk about Summoner. Okay, so Ranger is one of those things, right? No one's a main Ranger. If they are, they're trolling. Simply, they might not even know that they're doing it, but they're trolling themselves if they're a main Ranger. Fuck that. Like, Ranger, this was the game's attempt at actually copying the Bard strategy, where they incorporate a completely different way of playing a tune in this game. Yes, I just called it a tune, deal with it. And they failed, though. Ranger is not the... Like, what? Like, think about it, okay? What does a Ranger do? Rangers have daggers. Is that important? Well, yes and no, because the stats matter. Okay, so now you're saying there's an equipment investment on this job. I'm already turned off. Okay, make this job exciting for me, please. What else can it do? Doesn't sing like Bard does. Doesn't add buffs to my party like Bard does. It must have something that it can do. Well, it's a ranged attacker. Oh, so Black Mage. Oh, but it's physical ranged attacker, not magical ranged attacker. Oh, so it's kind of wanting to be Black Mage and also Bard, but it wants to be different from both of them just for the sake of being different. Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, who the fuck cares that it uses marksman or archery or any of this shit when we all have Corsairs now? Like, done. And Puppetmaster has ranged augments on their pet that are just better in general. So why do we even... And Puppetmaster sucks. Like, Ranger's a joke, you guys. I'm sorry if you're a main Ranger. You're probably bursting out in tears right now because this shit is definitely funny. Ranger is just a trash tier job for trash tier fucking elitists that want to actually think that they're good at something, so they get a Caradoc and they call it a day. Like, no, if you really want to be a main Ranger, you need to pull out your mythic weapon right now, sir. You need to just shut your damn mouth, okay? Like, period. Ranger is just not that good of a job in general. It's probably one of my least favorite jobs out of all of them that you could play. Yeah, people could make a Ranger burn party. Arrow burn was a thing at some point. There are content out there that you can just do better with Rangers, but you can also just bring Corsairs, and they're almost as good-ish. But you can play different strategies for that content anyway. So, like, if Ranger never existed, no one would notice. No one would notice if Ranger got erased from this game. Like, nobody would fucking care, okay? So... let's talk about investment. Let's say you want to play this job. Let's say you're doing it for the right reasons. That would be the fun. If you want to just have fun and shoot things pew 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 from a long distance, then play this job, and you can do that. What do you need to play that job then? Well, you need some ranged accuracy equipment. So there's a small equipment I guess, equipment window that you need to basically get all this shit before you can play the job. But it doesn't cost much. Most of it can be done in an afternoon or so. And you can get there relatively quick, right? So lots of Unity accolade content as well. Like, there's some really good daggers that you can just get right away with just Unity Concord. And if you need just gear in general, you just do Ambuscade or something. Hit up the auction house with whatever little gil you want to spend on the job, and then call it a day. Like, by the time it matters, you probably already kind of suck at your ranger. But maybe you're still having fun, so that's all that matters. So then the investment at that point is ammo. If you're buying ammo, you suck at Ranger. I'm sorry. But if you're buying ammo, you have to have ammo. If you don't have a way of producing ammo by yourself, then you suck at Ranger, period. Because all of the ultimate weapons on Ranger, basically the ones that matter anyway, have a way to dispense ammunition that just is really strong ammunition. So if you're buying ammo, again, you just trashed your Ranger. I'm sorry. Newsflash, you suck. Other than that, there's nothing wrong with that. This is a funsy job. People play this job for fun. So if you want to buy the stuff to get started on this job, I would encourage it because it is a fun job. You can buy the ammo. You can buy the bow. You can buy the gun. You can freaking quest this stuff. Most of this stuff. And you could be done with your ranger in a couple of days. And playing that job in Ambuscade, depending on like the metagame, maybe ranger's the best strategy for that month. Maybe you really just need to shoot it with a Coronach. That leads me into my next point. What's the only piece of equipment you really need to get to play Ranger? It's Coronach. It is a gun. It's not even a bow. It's a gun. And it's like the best gun for like 99% of what you're going to want to do on Ranger. It's just really good. Okay? It's just, from my experience, I never regretted having a Coronach Ranger in my party. I'm second guessing that now because I think Coronach's actually not equipable by Ranger, but I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure I'm actually doing this right, saying this right. Yeah, Ranger and Core. Yeah, see, Corsair could use it as well, and that's also highly recommended as the Corsair weapon. I thought it was both, but I had a brain fart where I second guessed myself. So yeah, Coronach, you guys, it's just too good. It's too good on all the jobs that can use it. And I don't really need to say much else. Like, just get that and call it a day. Like, that's it. That's it. That's your Ranger. That's your Ranger in a nutshell. Coronach, done. Okay. So, if you win the lottery, just grab one. Otherwise, quest that shit. It's not that hard. So let's move on to, like, everybody's most popular job. Summoner. Okay, why is this job popular? Everyone has a different answer. Calm down for a second. Let me tell you my take on this. I think this job is in the game because it's nostalgic to the series. The series in general has a lot of summoners or summoner-esque type jobs in all of the other previous games. They all have something to do with summoning some elemental beast from the void. And like now you have this extra power of this element at your disposal. And it's not Black Mage. It's like it wants to be Black Mage, but just like Dark Knight wants to be Warrior, just like friggin' Bard wants to be Red Mage. Basically all this shit wants to be the other main jobs, but they were just evolved differently into these new jobs. Summoner is that. But he's got to be in the game because every other game has had some type of summoner in it. So you wouldn't have a Final Fantasy without a summoner. So that's one of the reasons why everyone likes this job. It's just a very popular job, and they keep throwing it at us. And they keep doing such a good job with it. Like Bard, Summoner was done very well in this game. Like, super good. They even had to nerf it because they thought it was too strong. Actually, they nerfed Beastmaster, but not Summoner. I think I'm saying this right when I say that the Beastmaster was nerfed recently-ish, because now you can't actually attack from very far away. Whereas with the Summoner, the avatar controls itself. So you don't have as much control over your distance is less relevant, I guess is my point, in the current game with this. I'm pretty sure that's still true, but they nerfed the Beastmaster's distance to where he has to be up front and close to the mob, so you've got more of a gear requirement now. I guess I should have noted that. but it's not that important in most cases because you can just do your ability and run away, so I guess I left it out, and it's not that big of a deal that I left it out. But with the Summoner, obviously you have the least HP of all the classes you could be playing. You have the most MP, alright? That's what you do. You don't ever get hit, so your avatar is going to take hate off of you. If you get aggro while your avatar is out, your avatar is just going to take the hate from you and just going to tank for you. And that's what they're supposed to do. And so in that regard, Square Enix nailed it yet again. Like, everything about the Summoner was done correctly. I have no complaints about this job. When the players play this job, they get very carried away. They think, okay, well, let's look at all the best ultimate abilities in the entire game. All of them. All of them are really good. Like, 100 Fists is really good. Like, you can't just say Astral Flow Party or Bust when I could just say 100 Fist Party or Bust. You know what I'm saying? So, it doesn't matter for all of you people that friggin' think Summoner Burn needs to always be the case. No, guys, like, their SPs are just as good as everyone else's, okay? When you want to kill a Helm boss, you can burn it down with just about any job in this game. It doesn't have to be a Summoner. So if you think, oh, I'm just going to play Summoner forever, you're mistaken. You're very mistaken. This is not the game for you if you think that you only have Summoner as the option, because that's not true. Alright? Summoner is really strong at doing a lot of content simply because you can refresh your SP and use the SP, and in more cases than not, when you're mastered Summoner, that SP is much stronger and you're less likely to die while performing it, unlike 100 Fists, where you could just simply die. Or, you know, like, what's another one that matters? Ranger, where you do one big shot and that's it. But, like, again, people do these burn parties because they happen to like the kit that they have at their disposal for these jobs. Summoner's no exception. But you have to know that it's just like everything else. It's not special in any way, alright? It's a black mage that has a tank that it summons. Like, that's what it is. Like, period. So, gear requirements, let's back up just a hair. Spell requirements, I'm going to argue, like everything else, you want a full spell book, but you probably want to place less emphasis on the elementals, like the actual ice elemental, air elemental, etc., than the celestial guys like Ifrit and Shiva, etc. Alright? You definitely want to get all of the avatars. The Ifrit, the Shiva, the Titan, Diabolos, Fenrir, like everything. You want to get all of them. They're all good, okay? You want to probably place a little bit less emphasis on getting Alexander and Odin until last. That's probably what you're going to get last if you're working on this. That's how I did it anyway, and I saw no problem with that. All the content that you do on Summoner doesn't really require Alexander or Odin, but some does, so get it last, right? So once you have your spellbook up to par, wherever you feel like you need to have it, your skills can be done in overnight. You can basically just make a macro that basically summons and unsummons an elemental or whatever avatar all night that you like, and you could just leave your character logged in and just have that done and wake up the next morning and you're skilled up. So getting your skill capped in this game has never been easier. Now you don't even have to do that. You could just spend sparks or go to the auction house and simply buy books with gil instead of sparks, but either way you can get books which do exactly the same thing as skilling up outside of town overnight or something like that, where you could just simply skill up your character and get your character caught up with the rest of the world. So that's kind of free. I would expect you to really be capped though on these skills. There's really no excuse now to be nerfed on any skill, and summoning magic skill is important if you're playing this job. So that's all I want to say about that. Let's talk about gear on this job a little bit. I have a good amount of gear for Summoner. I do have a Nirvana. It's not 119 Afterglow yet, but I do have it. I'm actually working on Murglace for Red Mage now. I just finished Nirvana like a couple weeks ago, and I'm working on the item level stuff for it. I do have some JSE. I do have +2 and +3 gear from Omen as well for this job. So arguably that's pretty much your investment right there. And in my experience, it's really cheap. It's not that expensive to get the JSE +2 and +3 stuff. Over time, you can get it done. It's fun all along, like along the entire journey of getting all of the pages from the cards from Omen. It's a lot of fun. You'll have a blast doing it. And then eventually you'll get to the point where, yeah, you've got +2 and +3 gear on Summoner, and no one can top you. Like, you're just gonna be really strong at Summoner, period. Done. People are gonna want to have you come Summoner at that point for all of the content because you're just super geared. The more geared you are with this job, just like a lot of jobs in this game, the more geared you are, the more the community understands you to be a main of whatever that job is. Like, in this case, main Summoner. If you have all of the Summoner stuff, you're a main Summoner, you're a career Summoner, whether or not you're always logged in as a Dragoon. I don't care. If you have all of the Summoner stuff and a Nirvana Afterglow, you're my Summoner, you're not my Dragoon, okay? So just note, people are going to treat you like that. They're going to treat you like that no matter what job you have. If they find out you have a Yag Rush on your White Mage, you're a White Mage from now on. Like, most times, more often than not, that's going to be the case for you. Simply because it's supply and demand. Like, yeah, everyone gets Nirvana. Newsflash, everyone builds Nirvana. Everyone builds Burtgang and Aegis. If you just got yours and you feel special, don't feel special. You're trash. You literally just did what everyone else does, okay? And Yallarhorn on Bard. Like, these are the things, Kornak on Ranger, these are the things people just do. They simply do it because it's good. It's always going to be good. So don't feel special, but definitely low-key feel obligated to get this stuff done, right? As far as building the Nirvana and getting any JSCs at all, there's really not much more you need to do on Summoner. You could probably get the rest of your gear requirements met by simply doing Omen and getting drops from Omen. There's a lot of good stuff in Omen. There's some Unity Concord stuff you can do with your Unity accolades that you could just get gear that way. And other than that, some really easy 119 minus, like real easy content stuff that you can do in BC&M battlefield areas, like the avatars, etc., where there are pieces like Seraphicaller, for example, and just things like that, where, yeah, they're super good and they're not that hard to get. A lot of this stuff can be done solo, and you can get to that point. I would say the actual investment up front for this job is pretty much just a WAS or a Nirvana to really play the job competitively, but if you don't want to play 119 plus content and you want to play 119 minus content, like, you don't need anything. You just simply don't need anything. I got a couple of 119 item level staffs for this job before I got Nirvana, and I still use those for a lot of content. I don't even use Nirvana for everything. Nirvana's just in there for, like, as an option to, and I feel like even if I afterglow my Nirvana, I would probably still not always use it. It's a tool. It's just a situational niche piece for certain content, period. It sucks, but that's the case. Like, that's what it is. So that's a lot of stuff in this game, though. You just have to accept that. That's how the game's played. So, yeah, Summoner, not too hard to play. You could pick it up. You should. It's metagame. Let's talk about these next jobs on this list. Alrighty. So you have Ninja. Okay. Ninja is a job that came out with Rise of the Zilart. You guys probably always knew about it because you came into this game with that expansion or beyond that expansion. So you just always assumed this was the thing. This came out with Rise of the Zilart. Alright? And these are the three in this row here that all came out with the same expansion. I'm going to talk about each of them and how they're similar and why they exist and how you would play them in the metagame. Alright, so let's get started. Ninja. Well, it has a spell book. The spells are a pain in the ass to get. I'm going to be upfront with you. If you want to play Ninja, you're going to not have fun getting spells. It's probably going to be annoying, especially if it's a new account. If it's just a second account that you want to play Ninja on all over again for whatever reason, maybe you want to play another server without actually switching, maybe you got banned, you know what? It's not my business why you're playing this job in on multiple accounts. All right. The point is, Ninja is a job that you could potentially play on multiple accounts. Every time I make a new tune and I play on Ninja, regardless of circumstance, and this is the same story that I hear from everyone else, they don't like farming spells. The spells are annoying, so just note that. The spells are annoying to get. A lot of the stuff in this expansion was just simply annoying. They're trying to be new and innovative, and they did that, but they pissed off a lot of players by making them grind out all of the stuff they need for all these jobs. Going to all of these zones, like, who wants to go to Sea Serpent Grotto to get a JSE? Like, no, stop it, please. Why? Oh, and I forgot my gold beast coin. RIP! Now I have to go back to town for your gold beast coin? What the fuck? Just to get through a goddamn gate? Like, are you serious, game? Way to piss off players. Okay, that's all I gotta say about that. Ninja is an irritating job, but when you get there, it's quite fun to play this job. After you've gotten all of your spells, after you've mastered all of your skills, your evasion, your actual katana skill, your ninjutsu skill, then you start realizing that you're actually playing a really broken job. Like, let's just be honest, ninja is a very, very strong class in general. It can do elemental magic. So if you need elemental magic as your win condition for any content, ninja can get there, okay? So you can't discredit it on that front. It can do physical damage. So not only can it do magical damage, but it can also do physical damage. If you need physical damage as a win condition, ninja, again, can get there, alright? Let's say that you need enfeebling. Ninja's got enfeebling covered. All of the things that you could consider win conditions for any battlefield in the game, Ninja has an answer for it. Ninja is freaking Batman, dude. Batman's a ninja. They're prepared for anything, okay? You can get to a point with this job where you can literally do anything that you want as long as you came prepared. You can do anything. And that's what's really appealing to a lot of players about Ninja. I like Ninja. I don't have the time to invest in this job, unfortunately, so I don't have a lot of like ultimate weapons and stuff of that nature, but I've never looked at a ninja's equipment in my entire 15-year span of playing this game and thought, man, you suck. Like, of course you're wearing that stupid scorpion harness like everybody else. Maybe I thought that once, briefly, in level 75 cap, so many years ago, where everyone had a scorpion harness +1 or they didn't play ninja. But in the most cases, like, Ninja was just always appealing to a lot of players, and the gear choices that ninjas make are always fascinating, to say the least. The playstyle that ninjas incorporate during any content is always interesting and fascinating to watch, to say the least. The actual job combinations people come up with to beat things like Charybdis back in the day. It was one ninja and one bard, and you would just do that, or one red mage and one bard, or one ninja and one red mage, some combination of those three classes, or all of them if possible, and they would just rock and roll, dude. Charybdis was one of those fights where I noticed, basically one of the first times in my entire game experience on this game, that ninja was actually an interesting job for something I didn't think about, was when I saw the Charybdis fight. And there's just so many things that have happened since then, where I've watched ninja just like go above and beyond expectation all the time. And so I think this is a really fascinating job. I'm glad that the company added it to the game. I really think they nailed it. I don't feel like ninja has any weaknesses at all, and I feel like every demand that the customers might have had, the Final Fantasy player base might have had, in a ninja, ended up being added to Final Fantasy 11. So ninja is a fantastic job. The gear requirements for this job are almost non-existent. Like everything else, it's a play to win kind of thing, okay? You're eventually going to get to the point where you log in every day with better gear than you had before, similar to our Beastmaster and our Thief, and maybe the Dark Knight even. There's really nothing that people require you to have to play this job. If you have anything at all, any equipment at all, people are going to be like, that's great, you're the best ninja I've ever seen. Like, that's their mindset on the idea of you bringing a ninja to their party. So it doesn't matter. and nobody cares. Ninja is a very easy and very fun job to play. It's always and always will be metagame simply because it always has an answer to everything. There's no strategy that a ninja cannot play in. It's just simply good. It's always going to be a viable choice. If there is nobody logged on your entire server other than 1,000 ninjas, you can still do all the content in the game that you desire, alright? I'm not going to say that that's impossible. Ninja is that good at playing Ninja, alright? Playing Final Fantasy 11, Ninja's got it figured out, okay? You're not even piloting the ninja. The ninja is piloting you, okay? This is one of those, this is Mecha Frieza right here, if you're coming from Dragon Ball Super. Like, basically, man, dude, this guy has an answer for everything. It's just insane. So I don't want to spend too much more time talking about Ninja, other than know that it's just a play-to-win job. You're always just going to get better stuff, and there's nothing anyone expects you to get. So it's very cheap, very fun job. I would recommend playing that job. So it's up to you, of course, what you like to play. Definitely on my good list. Dragoon. Let's talk about Dragoon. Okay, that was a short conversation. Yeah, I've done this before, I know. So I'm not gonna bore you with the same joke 3 times. I almost did, but I held back. Dragoon's one of those jobs that nobody cares about. It's one of those jobs that you could just have brought anything else and I would have been just fine. It's just another warrior, basically. So if you want to use a polearm weapon instead of a scythe or a greatsword, then you bring the Dragoon. Now you have piercing damage. Woohoo! Maybe that's what we needed to, like, push the battle in our favor. Maybe not. Most likely not. In that case, you could have been anything else and we wouldn't have noticed. So Dragoon, much like Ranger and Dark Knight, is kind of a joke job in my book. It's just another physical damage from another weapon choice. The game came out with a new weapon and they're like, let's make a class that plays with that weapon and let's make it cool and make it nostalgic. So in this case, we have to have the Wyvern because the previous Dragoon games have the Wyverns. Like, Dragoon in every other game I've seen doesn't have a pet dragon. Like, maybe, I don't know, correct me in the comments, but from my experience, I'm looking at, like, Legend of the Dragoon. Like, that game didn't have Wyvern pets, and it was a fantastic Dragoon game. Yeah, so, like, Dragoon is just meh in my book. It's cool, I get it, I get why people would play this job. It's fun. It's a button mash job. It's Riven if you play League of Legends. Like, okay, fine. Bring it. I don't care. But I'm just going to say you could have been a monk, alright? But we need piercing, so you're not a monk today, you're a Dragoon. That's great. Nobody cares. Let's move on. The Dragoon doesn't need any gear. It doesn't have any spells. It's so cheap and easy to play. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. It doesn't need any skills because it naturally caps everything that it uses over time as you're playing it. So, like, this is a very easy job to play in comparison to the ninja. It's a joke. When you size it up to the ninja, it's an absolute joke. The ninja takes so much skill and so many different ways to play this job and master this job. And the Dragoon's just like button mash. Did we get there yet? Button mash. Did we get there yet? Can I stop? My fingers hurt. Like, this is the job, alright? Gear requirements. Basically non-existent, you guys. Item level, whatever your item level is. Whatever your party's level is what you need for gear. That's it. Do you need any RMEs? That would be great if you had them. If not, I mean, I'm sure nobody would notice, right? They might just troll you later for bringing a Dragoon and not having an ultimate, but if they didn't, then congrats. You got lucky. You got away with it. You totally trolled your whole party. That's what you did. So, I don't have much else to say about this job. I wish I had better experiences with this job. I like the job. I think it's a fun job. I'm experienced playing it, and I can't see the thrill. I just don't see it. It's a DD. Like, it's just another DD. So, whatever the hell damage we need, bring the job that has that damage available. So, if we happen to need piercing damage, maybe I'll hire a Dragoon for my party, but other than that, I just don't care, right? I'll just bring my Corsair and not care at all, okay? So let's look at the next job on this list, Samurai. I do need to talk about Samurai. There's quite a few things that have come out in recent updates about this job that you just need to know. all the JAs have basically been overhauled on this job. They've put a lot of work into Samurai, making it really strong, and it is a very strong job, both main and sub. This is a very popular choice for a lot of content. This job is just insane. It's like, okay, let's compare Samurai to Ninja, just like we could compare Rune Fencer to Paladin, okay? Rune Fencer is a tank, but it does 4 times as much damage as a Paladin does, who's also a tank. Give or take 4 times as much damage. Samurai is a ninja with like 4 times as much damage. Do you see my point? Like, this is basically the analogy you could get at, right? So when they came out with this expansion, it kind of made sense, I guess. You have your crazy DDs and your crazy toolbox card right here with the ninja. And like the Samurai coming through with all these updates to just kind of size it up and make it just as good or better as the Dragoon, and then get it to the metagame where it really needed that push so people would use it more often to really have the company make sense of building all these new weapons every expansion and all this new gear every expansion. They need to make sure their jobs are still good, so they've just kept making changes to Samurai. Since the beginning of time, Samurai has always gotten a buff. So that is simply because it's not a good job. It's just a job that never gets nerfed because it always is underclassed if it's sized up to other jobs in the metagame. So it's just simply always going to be worked on. All right. So for that alone, I really don't play it that often, simply because I know it's just going to keep changing and I want to really know the job's finished. Square Enix is not going to put their dirty little fingers on the job at any point moving forward because they figured it out. I feel like Samurai is getting there, or maybe just got there, but that's a recent turn of events with the JA overhauls and the Aeonic, for example. Aeonic is a dream, you guys. Don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite Aeonics. So let's talk about how to play this job, and we'll get back to the Aeonic. The skills that you need to actually master themselves, just like the Dragoon. So you have no magic to worry about. The skills will master themselves. Basically, there's no time investment whatsoever in getting to 119. You do some ambuscade, you get some decent gear. You do any quest for a weapon, then you get a decent weapon. You get an ultimate, then you get an ultimate. That's great. And then that's all you need. Like, get your accessories from Omen and call it a day. Just like basically everything else that you could play in this game. Okay? But what can Samurai do that a lot of other jobs can't do? Well, it's known for its skill chain combos. Everyone should already know this. This is not news. But if I need skill chain damage, I'm going to want to hire a Samurai in my party. So there's always going to be room for a Samurai, simply because that is always a viable strategy. Again, it's just a strategy. There's a lot of ways to do a lot of content. Some content I've discovered, though, that's the best strategy. Using the Samurai, particularly a Samurai with an Aeonic. A Samurai that can solo Radiance, and I think also can solo Umbra. Like, I'm pretty sure you can do both. I don't know 100%, but basically an Aeonic Samurai is nuts. Just absolute nuts in Omen against, like, some of the floor 5 bosses. Oh my god. It's just as good as, like, having the Mythic Ranger. Like, the underdog ranger with the mythic weapon, Gastrophides, is just insane damage against some of these Omen bosses. Just like the Aeonic Samurai coming out of nowhere. Oh man, there's my Samurai, it's gonna get there. By the way, I bet I didn't tell you this, I totally have the Aeonic, I just got it this morning. Now we're definitely gonna get there, dude! Are you serious? Like, it's just a blowout. The Aeonic is insane. Oh my god, that Aeonic is so good. It's just too good. It's too good because it's on a class that's designed to do skill chains. It's literally an Aeonic, which is basically they were made to make skill chains good, right? That's what their purpose is. Store TP on a weapon? That's awesome. Skill chains? Like Aftermath? Like more skill chains? What? Like that's what the Aeonic series is all about. And Samurai nails it. Samurai simply nails it. This is one of the best Aeonics in the game. Simply because you can do crazy shit with like tier 4 freaking skill chains against Omen bosses, for example. That's just one example. There's so many things that you could do when you get your Aeonic done. on the warrior, for example. But on the samurai, it's just the same. It's just the same. And they're better than the warrior against certain content simply because they can just keep spamming their skill chains. The warrior will have a little bit more difficulty actually hitting, whereas the samurai has the meditate advantage and the store TP advantage. They're going to get there, period. And the skill chains are going to get there. Alright? So this job is insane. Once you get the Aeonic done, I would say if you want to pick this job up, please try to invest in at least the bare minimum, the Aeonic's Great Katana for this job. Then you're good. That's basically it. You could get a Masamune if you want nostalgia and you feel like you want to be Sephiroth because his sword was indeed a Masamune. If you want to be Sephiroth and you want the Masamune, then you can get the Masamune and no one's going to knock you for it. It's a fantastic ultimate. Every ultimate is fantastic, though. There's not a bad ultimate in this game. That's why they're ultimate weapons, okay? You can get any one you want. My opinion, if you wanted to just invest in one of them, you would want to invest in the Aeonic for the Samurai in particular. Just like the same story with Warrior. The Aeonic for that job is just super good for what it can do. So there you go. So that's the Samurai. Not much else needs to be said. I mean, Aeonic or bust. It's pretty good without an Aeonic. It's just insane with an Aeonic. Let's move to the Treasures of Val'dorgen expansion and talk about the next 3 jobs that got added to this game. These are very popular jobs, more or less. I'm looking at you, Puppetmaster. And so they have different ways to be played. Let's keep going in order, and as much as I want to talk about Puppetmaster, let's talk about Blue Mage. This is everybody's favorite job. It's like at any point that you log into this game, if you do a search for any particular job, you're going to see more Blue Mages logged in on their Blue Mage, currently playing their Blue Mage, than any other job, give or take. Some other jobs might be more popular, would be Beastmaster or Thief. In most cases, though, Blue Mage, Summoner, Beastmaster, Thief is like 90% of everyone playing. I'm exaggerating. It's more like 60, but it's a large majority of the players are playing one of those 4 jobs. Blue is one of those 4 jobs. Blue is just a really popular job. It's just a very popular job. It's very easy to play, and it's, again, play to win. You keep playing this job, you keep getting better at Blue Mage, period. Like, there's nothing else to be said. Simply by farming spells, you're playing the job to get better at that job. That's your purpose. Farming spells, playing the job to get better at the job. That job naturally gets better over time. Every day you log out, you will always be better Blue than you were before. Just like those other jobs we talked about, right? So it's an easy and fun job to play in that regard because it's not very strict on what you need to get right away. You have multiple answers to just about everything, and so you can get there in so many different ways that there's really no metagame way to play Blue Mage. You probably need Spectral Flow at the very least. Other than that, there's so many other substitutions that you could make besides Spectral Flow if for whatever reason you don't have it yet or don't want to get it. For whatever reason, it's viable. You could totally get away with that. So the spells are just not that important. It's going to take a long time to get all of them, and they're all good, but you can play the job without them for the larger part. I would still say you want all of them, right? But there are a lot. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Getting all of them unlocked is my best recommendation for this job. Take your time getting what you need for whatever event you're trying to plan, and then just plan ahead as much as possible, and you'll enjoy this job as far as the spell progression goes. And let's talk a little bit about the skill progression of this. This is a sword-wielding class. It's going to be able to unlock its own dual wield effect simply because that's how Blue Mage works. It can combine spells in its arsenal to unlock certain traits, job traits, as well as, well, a lot of things. But we'll just talk briefly about job traits. So it does have the dual wield effect depending on what spells are currently loaded on the Blue Mage. Okay, so what is it using in both hands? It's using a sword. It's always going to be using 2 swords. The only time that this job is not using 2 swords is when the player decides he doesn't want or need dual wield, and maybe he wants to play a club, which he would ideally want 2 clubs, but maybe not necessarily, So maybe 1 club, and his offhand would either be empty or it would be some shield. There's only a few of them in the game that Blue Mage can equip. They're okay, but they're not great, and they really don't matter, okay? So my point is, you're mostly going to be using club or staff when you play this job, in most cases. So you're going to want 2 copies of each so you can dual wield them, okay? If possible. Tizona, obviously, and most of your rare EX, you can't have more than 1, obviously. So that is a thing. Let's talk about some of those swords. What you would need for gear requirements for this job. JSC is kind of okay to get you started, and then you want to keep up with your level. So you're going to keep going with that style of Sapara, the curved swords. They're typically better for blue mages. They're designed for blue mages. So you could just keep getting your Saparas until you're item level 119 with your best Saparas, which would be like Tizona. Tizona is a Sapara. And that would be good for you. Colada is one of the, I think it's a long sword, not a short sword. But it's one of the long swords you could get for Blue Mage, and it's not bad, but it's not one of the best choices for Blue Mage. In your offhand, you would probably want your Almas. That is your Empyrean, I believe, your Empyrean sword for Blue Mage, Red Mage, and one other job, I think. Paladin, that's it. Paladin, Red Mage, and Blue Mage. Yep. So, if you get those 2 swords, Tizona and Almas, you're done. You're a career Blue Mage. Everyone's going to want you to come to their event with those 2 swords. If you don't have Tizona, don't feel bad. It is an end-game goal for all Blue Mages. That needs to be noted. It is definitely a good sword, and you need to get it eventually, but you can put it off, especially if you already have the Almas done. If you have the Almas done, then congratulations, you're a smart player. Smarter than I am, because I'm still working on Almas, okay? Almas is a great sword, and Blue Mage just simply can use it, so no other argument as to why you would want to get it, okay? And since you dual wield with that job, those are the best 2 swords for you. The other requirements for gear would be, there's not really much, to be totally honest. You could get some JSCs that affect certain spells or abilities. I'm not a main blue, so I don't have too much information on what particular JSCs that would be good or bad. I have a few of them unlocked, but not many, so I can't really tell you a whole lot about what JSCs you would want to get. I would say just do your homework on this, research what JSCs to get in this case. I could tell you that a lot of people are using gear that's not JSC on this job, so I rarely see JSCs pulled out. They're usually just macro pieces, if anything. So just do your homework to figure out what you would want to get for this job. I would say the very, very, very few requirements on gear, and just like some of the other jobs we talked about, since it's a play to win, you're eventually just going to get the gear anyway. So you just play the job until you get all the gear for the job. Basically, that's how you would play Blue Mage. Getting to that point, though, you're going to just want to focus on accuracy, which Blue Mage does have high accuracy. You're going to want to focus on magic accuracy. You're going to want to focus on just damage and magic damage. You're going to want to have multiple sets of gear for the job. 1 for magic, 1 for physical, at least. You're going to want to have some sort of tank set or movement speed set that you could use to actually kite, because a lot of times with Blue Mage you're soloing for CP to get Master, for example, and the best strategy is to just use movement speed gear, use tank gear, run around, use your magic and your fast cast sets to actually just nuke everything really quick, and then do it again, and then they're all dead, and then you just move on. Put your refresh set on while you're running around, okay? So that's basically the process. So Carmen Cruces +1 is the leg slot you would use for the movement speed, I believe. That's like your best in slot, just like Paladin. We didn't talk about those particular gears yet, but any movement speed would work. You have a ring from Adeline you could get that would also work. So whatever you want to do, it really just doesn't matter. Like, this is a very, very liberal job. It just simply doesn't care what it gets. So I'll stop here on the Blue Mage, because I feel like I've covered everything that needs to be talked about. You can leave some comments if you feel like I left anything out, or if you're a main blue and I totally got it wrong, let me know. But I feel like that's about it for that job. It's definitely a job everyone plays, so everyone's going to have a different way of playing it for sure. Let's talk about one of my favorite jobs in the game. This is Corsair. Corsair is an insane job. It is like Ninja in the same regard that Ninja's prepared for everything, and similarly Bard is prepared for everything, Paladin. these kinds of jobs, Red Mage even, these jobs are just really, really good at supporting the party. They're really good at winning the fight. They're just really good in general at everything that they're capable of doing. They simply don't need much more of anything else. Now, my argument is Bard's more broken than Corsair, simply because Bard doesn't need any new gear and Corsair does need some gear. Let me give you an example of some types of gear that Corsair would want to get. Since Corsair uses swords and daggers, any ultimate sword or dagger would be good to equip on Corsair. But they don't get those. They simply get ultimate ranged weapons, mostly guns. Okay, I think only just guns. Okay, so their marksmanship ultimates are like top notch. Sure, that's fine. But why is it that Paladin can carry a shield ultimate weapon, well, ultimate shield, and a sword ultimate? Why is it that Blue Mage can dual wield 2 ultimate swords? You see what I'm getting at? Like, Paladin and Warrior, Paladin and Blue Mage have 2 ultimates, 2 different ultimates that they can use. Okay, Thief could use 2 different ultimates. So it's okay for some jobs to use 2 different ultimates, but then you get to this Corsair and it's not okay? Is that because you don't want us to have 3 different ultimates? Because we would be dual wielding plus our ultimate ranged weapon? Is that what that's about? Because I could understand that, but just long story short, what I'm getting at here is the Corsair main and sub weapons are usually lackluster. The best in slot is going to keep changing over time simply because the company has not allowed Corsair to actually pick up ultimate weapons for the main and sub slots on Corsair. Okay, that's the only reason. I can see why it would be overpowered, but it wouldn't be overpowered as much as Bard, because when they just added the necklace to Bard, which the Moonbow necklace, they broke Bard. They made Bard so good that they literally just gave it 2 Yaller horns. Okay? That's basically what they did. Okay? So it's nuts, you guys. Now, you're going to correct me on the math in there, but I'm just going to say get a life. I know what I'm talking about, and it's basically a second Yaller horn on that Moonbow necklace that you can get on that Bard. So, yeah, it's insane. Bard's insane, and it's definitely got a lot of buffs just to be super good again because they wanted it to be played more because, again, that's their baby. Corsair's not their baby, though, so who knows? Maybe in the future they'll give us ultimate swords and daggers for Corsair, but I'm not going to count on it. I'm not going to hold my breath on it. And until then, I'm just going to say that the best in slot choices are always going to be changing around depending on what the metagame is for the sword and the offhand. So like your sword and your dagger, for example. Okay. Now, let's talk about what the Corsair actually does in the party. Okay, so it's going to need a small investment up front. You're going to need to get dice to actually unlock your spells. There's not really spells, but they're sort of spells. You're going to need to get dice. Once you get all the dice and you have all of the spells, you can play with your phantom roll ability to its maximum potential. And you could just be the career Corsair that everyone knows and loves. All right? That could be your life. You could spend a year and a half, 2 years doing this, and everyone would love you for it. Because who doesn't want a Corsair in their party? Everyone wants a Corsair in their party. Corsair is one of the most sought-after support classes in the game. Just like Bard, you would never turn this job down if they tried to join your party. You just wouldn't do that, okay? So, it's a great job because of what it can do. And that's established, and that's not going to change. So what it can do is always going to be static. So as long as you got that figured out, the mechanics of the job with the phantom rolls that you have access to, then from that point forward, you just keep an eye on updates pertaining to Corsair, and you can stay at the forefront of the metagame for Corsair indeterminately. All right, forever. Okay. Now let's talk about other investments that you're going to need to make if you want to play core. We talked about the actual dice. That's not that hard to get. That's just as hard as farming blue magic, okay, if you're playing blue mage. Let's talk about some of the gear choices, I suppose, because I would argue that you're also going to cap your skills out on this job over time anyway, so I shouldn't have to help you with that. I think we've nailed it when we talked about like how easy it is to cap skills in this game. You could just get the books and do it that way in town. I don't care. Just get it done. It's less important on this job than it is on other jobs because your roles don't really care about most of your skills or any of your skills for the most part. I'm pretty sure, anyway. Might be wrong on one or two of those, but as far as I know, the skills are less relevant on this job, and you could use the skills to just get a little bit better, get an edge, sort of, in the party, other than that. But you should, if you're a career Corsair and you've gotten everything else figured out, you should already be capped on your skills. So let's talk about what you would do with those skills. You would have gear, okay? These gear choices are always going to be different because there's so many pieces of gear for all these jobs, including Corsair. Corsair has so many pieces of gear that it could get, okay? The most notable piece is the gun, all right? The gun is going to be very important. There's a lot of different guns that you can get on this job, so you're going to want to do your homework to figure out which gun is going to be for you. It really just depends on what you need to do with your Corsair, what parties you want to join, what bosses you want to fight. In advance, if you plan for this, then you'll actually do your homework well enough to actually get the right gun. You could do the content correctly with the correct weapon skill, with the correct gun that augments said weapon skill, and you could really just get there, okay? That's my advice for you. That said, I personally am going to collect all of the guns for Corsair because I like that job. So I will have all of the guns, and I will recommend any of the guns. You want any of the guns, ultimate guns. Doesn't matter what it is. Just get it done, okay? They're super good. Super good, you guys. As far as other pieces of gear, less relevant. Much less relevant. Nobody cares as long as you have a good gun, okay? And as long as you're doing their roles that they want, nobody cares. That said, all of the roles are augmented by certain pieces of gear. So you're going to want to do your homework on what roles your party's going to want. You're going to want to know what pieces of gear augment those roles, if any at all. And then you're going to want to make sure you macro it in correctly and you have that gear, access to that gear, okay? Once you get to that point, you're going to pretty much be done with your gear requirements for Corsair in general. Like, that's it. That's pretty much it. Everything else that you add from that point forward is play to win. It's play to win. You just keep getting more and more pieces of gear until you have all the things. And believe me, it's not that hard to get all the things on Corsair. It's actually a pretty limited equipment pool, simply because if they had any more equipment at all, they'd be much more broken than they already are, and they're already pretty tough. So I feel like they're good. They're in a good spot right now. And I feel like there's not much else to be said about this job. Yo ho ho, a pirate's life for a lot of players, right? Let's talk about Puppetmaster. Puppetmaster is an underdog class. It's always been an underdog class. They made it, I guess, because they wanted a third job with this expansion and they couldn't think of something else that would fit the theme of what they were showing us than Puppetmaster, simply because they used puppets in the storyline, so it made sense. They used Blue Mages, Corsairs, and Puppetmasters and puppets in the storyline for the Treasures of Ottergan's story. Spoiler alert, I guess. So because they did that, of course, those are the jobs. And I think they did the same thing in all of these expansions, to be totally honest. The main characters were the jobs that you could unlock later and play as. All right? So, but when they did Puppetmaster, I think they were really rushed for time. And I feel like they really just tried to do something that would be acceptable for the players, because they really just didn't consider people would move on to this job, but they wanted to have it as an option, I guess. And so they did things with Puppetmaster that were already in the game, but they tweaked them a little bit. Like, for example, your avatar. Okay, you could have a magic avatar. Your your puppet could be a magic casting puppet. That's possible. But then you'd pretty much just be a melee summoner, wouldn't you? Okay? But, you know, you also have ranged. So you're kind of a monk that has a ranger friend. All right? Basically, you're whatever you want to be when you play Puppetmaster. And they were very versatile with what the puppet could do and what the Puppetmaster could do in such a way that they made it possible for anyone who had any experience on these other previously released jobs to actually pick up the Puppetmaster and play the Puppetmaster and have fun with the Puppetmaster. Okay? Since then, the Puppetmaster hasn't evolved too much over time. He's just kept up with on updates. He gets all the gear that everyone else gets, pretty much. Real easy to wear the gear. He has to actually equip attachments, much like the Corsair has to equip dice, like actually use dice. The Puppetmaster has to use these attachments. I believe they are recyclable, but I'm not 100%. I'm pretty sure they are recyclable though. The attachments that you add to the automaton basically affect what he can do, and so you can tweak him in all those different slots of his gear because you can add your 16, and I think he also gets 16 pieces of gear that you could add attachments to. So you could basically customize this like a Swiss Army knife. Puppetmaster has a lot of potential. Most players that say LOL pup, they just don't know what the pup can do, or they're just trolling for the nostalgia of trolling, because Puppetmaster does have a lot of things that it's capable of doing. There's a lot of content that Puppetmaster excels at doing that most of these other jobs just would suck at doing, okay? So don't rule out Puppetmaster as a viable option for you to play for certain content, because it's a good option. Getting it prepared to play is a whole other thing entirely, because it does dedicate a lot of inventory space, which fortunately enough shares jobs with some of the other things in this game. Okay, looking at you, Monk. So you could potentially just recycle a lot of the equipment that's used on this job. So it's not terribly inventory inefficient. And the fact that you can store the attachments on your automaton's inventory instead of your own is actually a plus, in my opinion, because you don't have to carry that extra shit to use the automaton. Unfortunately, with the summoner, you do have a staff for, depending on what you're trying to summon, there's a staff for that, you know what I mean? So your inventory is dedicated to carrying all that stuff. The Puppetmaster doesn't dedicate his inventory to his puppet's attachments. That's my point. That's the big difference, okay? So I don't really want to spend too much time talking about this job because it's not metagame. It's just a niche job for niche battlefield content, and it's better than a lot of choices in certain content, but it's also worse than a lot of choices in other content. So you really just need to do your homework and see what Puppetmaster is good for in the game. But as far as gear requirements, I would say, again, there's not too many. It's pretty simple to gear this job. You could work on some JSEs or not. I don't think anyone would notice if you didn't. Your actual main weapon, since you're using hand-to-hand as your primary damage, it doesn't matter. Your attachments are more relevant than your actual gear is when you play this job. So just work on that, I guess, and then it's play to win. You just keep building your pup after that until you're a boss pup. And then, yeah, that's it. So, I mean, not much to say there. I don't really care about the ultimates for this job. I don't think anybody does. But they do exist. They would be worth getting. Last back burner sort of thing for sure. Okay, next expansion, Wings of the Goddess. So you get 2 new jobs. I don't know why they didn't give us a third one, but they decided for 2 this time, and now there's 2 on this another expansion. So that's interesting. But they gave us 2, I think, because they liked 20 more than 21, but now we have 22 instead of 24. So there's an argument there that they should have just kept giving us 3, I guess. And they didn't, unfortunately. Whatever, that was their decision. So we get 2 jobs. Let's talk about these 2 jobs. Dancer. I know some pretty douchebag dancers on a lot of servers. People who think they're all that, and they're just not good. But in most cases, your dancer, if they're playing dancer, they probably know what they're doing. They probably have some sort of combo memorized that they're going to do, so they're not necessarily button mashing, although it will look like they are button mashing. We'll talk more about that when we get to Rune Fencer. But dancer definitely has a strategy. They have a game plan. They have a combo that they're going to try to pull off. It's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to do insane damage in certain content, okay? You can't rule out Dancer if they say that they'll bring Dancer to what such and such content. They probably know what they're talking about, have done it before, and they will wreck that content with their Dancer. So don't rule that out as a viable option for your party if you have to do certain content, okay? That said, what are the investments that the player needs to make to actually get Dancer up to par and play it in any metagame, even though it's a non-meta pick? Well, you don't have any issues really with skills. That pretty much masters itself, where you just spend some time in town and you're good with the books. You don't have any magic with this job, so I feel like all of the dances unlock themselves, if I recall correctly. They unlock themselves. You don't even have to actually, like with Corsair, you have dice to unlock Phantom Rolls. I don't think that's the case with Dancer. I think I'm pretty sure, yeah, I am sure. I'm sure of it now. You get everything for free with Dancer. Everything's free. It's all free. Bard spells, you gotta quest them or buy them. Corsair roll dice, you gotta quest them or buy them. Attachments, quest or buy. Quest or buy with the summoner, right? With the Dancer, nah, it's free. It's all free. It's all free. The Scholar is also kind of free because if you played the Black Mage and the White Mage, you pretty much have 99% of all the spells. And then there's a few Scholar spells, like some Helixes. That's about it. A couple other ones, but mostly just Helixes. But with the Dancer, there's nothing. It's just all free. It all comes to you. So easy job to get into if you're new to the game and you want to just play a job that's not Thief but functions like Thief. You can just play Dancer, and then when you're bored, you play Thief again, and you don't really even have to change gear all that much. You still have the same kind of gear. You could get some JSEs for this job that augment what you can do. I would recommend that, but you don't have to play the job. It's just recommended. For most of the content, you can bring whatever you want. So it doesn't matter what you have on the Dancer. It's another play-to-win job. It's just another DPS, play-to-win. It could be a tank, play-to-win. It could be a support class, play-to-win. Just like Corsair and Bard. I mean, yeah. And just do anything you want with this job, kind of like Ninja, right? So that's what I have to say about that job. If you really want to be good at the job, I would recommend getting some Ultimate Daggers, because those do exist, and that would make you a boss Dancer, for sure. Twashtar is like literally broken with Dancer. If you get a Twashtar, which I have a Twashtar, it's not finished yet, but I have a Twashtar. When you get it done, and you afterglow it, and you play Dancer with it, it's like the only thing you want to do for the rest of your Final Fantasy XI career, because that Twashtar is nuts on a Dancer. Equally good on all the other jobs that can use it, right? But super good on Dancer. Makes Dancer like so good DPS wise. Other than that, yeah, I mean, you just feel this is a fun job to play. You do what you want. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what you need, but definitely Ultimates would be advised, JSEs would be advised, and that not much else actually. Let's move on to Scholar. Scholar is a little bit more of an intense job. You really need to know how Scholar works in order to play Scholar. You will make a lot of mistakes playing this job. It is not an intuitive job at all. It's actually a job for smart people. Get it? Because he's a scholar. Okay, anyway. That was a lame pun, right? The way that this job is difficult is the same way that it's easy. It's easy if you already have the spells. If not, you have to learn twice as many spells for the job, unfortunately. Okay, once you're there, you still need to learn the scholar spells. After you learn the scholar spells, you need to learn how they're used, what they can do, and how to augment them on damage. That's all stuff you need to learn. You have to do a lot of homework. Do you get it? Homework when you play this job, okay? So it's just insane. There's a lot of work to be done on Scholar. It's not an easy job. It's not for beginners. But it is a lot of fun to play once you figure out how to use it, how to self-skill chain, because he can play as a samurai. He has the ability to do that as well. Once you learn all the ins and outs of the Scholar, you'll realize that it is a combination of, are you listening? Samurai, Black Mage, White Mage, Red Mage, Paladin, all these things. Ninja. It's like one of those. It's a combination of all that. And maybe even Corsair, because he buffs himself a lot too. And that means he's also a combination of Bard. There's a little bit of everything in this job, and he's a master of all of them. Don't get it twisted. He's not a jack of all trades, master of none, like the Red Mage, which is also a master of all trades, in my opinion, because he can be better at everything than everyone else if you're well geared. The Scholar's no exception. Same exact thing. He can literally be better at everything that every other job has access to. He could just do it better as a Scholar. He could. It's possible, alright? Scholar's nuts. Scholar's like the most broken job in this game. If the player is familiar enough with the job itself, if the player has the job mastered, in and out, figured out everything he could do with it, then you can do some pretty insane shit with Scholar. Like, you can solo the Rizenjima Mimic with Scholar. You could just laugh at him while entire alliances are getting wiped. You could just solo him. It's not even a problem for you. It's just one simple combo. I've got the combo memorized, but it's just one simple combo, and you just AFK until it's over. It's broken. This job's broken, okay? So, a lot could be said about this job. I'm just going to recommend that if you want to play this job, just simply do your homework on it. I can't stress that enough. Get everything that you need to do for whatever party you're going in, and nothing more, because there's so much more stuff you could get with this job as far as spells, gear, whatever it is, mastery of certain things. Like, there's just so much. There's so much to talk about. So I'm going to try to keep it brief when I discuss the Scholar. The Scholar is a great job. When it comes to gear, it's not that difficult, really, to get all of the gear for this job either. Okay? So the investment for playing this job is quite simple. If you want to play it in the current metagame right now, I would say you really just need the one staff that the Scholar gets. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. I have it. I just keep forgetting the name of it. Academos. Academos. You're going to want to get at least one Academos. If you're a main Scholar, you might want to get a second Academos because you can augment them differently. They have different paths when you're actually augmenting the weapons in Norg or whatever. But you need one Academos, and it's a strong staff for this job. It's just as strong as Lathy is on Black Mage. So on my Black Mage, I have a Lathy. I'm working on Colostrum, but it's a joke item, so I'm not really investing too much time and money in it. But I have a Lathy, and that's all I think I need on Black Mage. On Scholar, you could get an Ultimate Staff, or you could get a really cheap Academos. Either way. If you're going to want to main this job, then I would say go ahead and get the Ultimate Staffs for the job, any of them. That would be good, but until then, Academos is a great choice for you. As far as gear, there are some JSEs that have some perks that are like macro pieces, just like any other job in this game. But a lot of the gear sets are going to change depending on what you want to do. You're going to need to make note that when you're playing this job, you have a lot of potential as not only a healer and an elementaler, like a Black Mage or a White Mage, but you also have a lot of enfeebling ability. You have a lot of tankiness in this game as a Scholar. So when you're soloing some really difficult content, the process is that you're going to be, like, all the things going through your head is going to be a lot of this stuff. You're going to need to think about a fast cast equip set. You're going to need to think about an actual elemental damage equip set. A magic burst damage equip set. These are 3 different equip sets so far. Okay? A healing equip set. You're going to need an enfeebling equip set. One, Red Mage is going to need multiples because they have different enfeebling types of magic. That's something I didn't note, but you're probably never going to get to that point. And if you're at that point, you've done your homework and you know about all the different ways Red Mage can enfeeble stuff. So I don't want to really spend much more time talking about the Red Mage. Plus, we're well beyond that. Okay, but with the Scholar, it's just like a lot of other enfeebling jobs. It just needs the one enfeebling set, okay? Seriously, guys, do your homework on Red Mage and learn the difference between the enfeebling sets that it has access to. And that will help up your Red Mage game for sure. Okay? But for Scholar, no, it's quite simple. It's quite simple. One enfeebling set, okay? One tank set, PDT minus and MDT minus. Both of them are good, depending on the content. Okay? So you could get both of them done, and that would really up your game as a Scholar. What else can you do? You could do a store TP set and an accuracy set, honestly, because part of your combo to self-skill chain darkness requires you to actually land a weapon skill. So that would mean you would want weapon skill accuracy gear. You would want actual accuracy gear so you could get TP. You would want store TP so you could get more TP every time you actually accurately land a hit. And it's so on and so forth, okay? So there's a lot of things that a lot of players don't consider when they pick up this job. That's my point. You could have an equip set for just about anything imaginable for Scholar, and it would be good. If Scholar can equip it, it's good, okay? And Scholar's going to definitely have some content that they need that particular gear for. So just get all the gear you can for Scholar. It is play to win, like a lot of these jobs in this game, and I can't think of any particular gear that's better or worse than any other particular gear. Like, it's all good. Play to win. Play to win. What else? What else for Scholar? I think I about nailed everything. I don't think we need to talk much more about ultimates or gear choices in general. Spells, yeah, we're good. We've talked about everything for Scholar. It's a fun job, you guys. Learn the combo, though. The solo skill chain combo. It's really, really strong. Basically, one-shots anything at once, more or less. Plus, who doesn't want a Magic Burst to Helix? Like, that's awesome. Okay. So, next expansion and last 2 jobs in the game. This is Seekers of Adoulin. These jobs came out recently, so they never had a 75 equivalent in the game. I guess the closest thing was maybe Warrior Tank or like Dark Knight Tank instead of Rune Fencer. Maybe even Paladin Tank. You could say those are the 3 things that would have existed when Rune Fencer was not a thing that could similarly perform Rune Fencer stuff. If not, ninja as well for the ninjutsu attribute, I would say. For the Geo, I mean, the closest thing you have to Geo that was in the game would be like your Bard, really. And I don't know, man. Maybe Dancer. And definitely the idea of the equipment that you could wear that gave you an aura that allowed nearby party members to actually gain a buff. You know what I'm talking about? There was gear that had like in-circle ability on it, and in-circle was like a circle effect, which everyone around you got the effect that your gear provided, but you didn't get it. So Geomancer kind of does that, but he hits himself and everyone else. So he's kind of an in-circle ability on a player instead of on a piece of gear, okay? So let's talk about the Geomancer. This is probably no new information to a lot of people because Geomancer is metagame right now. It is one of the strongest jobs in the game and the most popular job in the game. It has one of the best ultimates in the game that it is literally nothing without this ultimate. The club, Idris. Literally nothing without Idris. Idris is so important on this job. It's also easier to get than it is to get ultimates on a lot of other jobs, and I'm appreciative of that, but it is still a time sink. It is an investment, and it is annoying. So yeah, Idris is something everyone should get, even if they don't play Geo, simply because they have the option after they get an Idris to play Geo. Similarly, Nirvana is an item that all summoners should get simply because they have the option to play Summoner with a Nirvana after they get a Nirvana, okay? So, and I guess Yag Rush for the White Mage is one of those things, you know what I mean? So you just infinitely get better at your potential in the party if you get the Idris, okay? So let's just get that out of the way right now. Like, the Idris is very important. You can play the Geo without an Idris. It is not a bad choice. It is still better than having a trust in your party. If you have a player in your party that is non-Idris Geo, as long as they are not Gimp, they can still play Geo very well in the party. Similarly with Corsair, you don't need a death penalty to play Corsair. You should get a death penalty for Corsair because it's absolutely nuts, but you don't need it. For Dancer, you don't need a Twashtar. You could get a Twashtar, but you don't require a Twashtar to play the job effectively. You don't need an Idris for any content in this game. Everything in this game, I'm not going to repeat this. Don't argue with me. Every content in this game, including Helm T4s and Rizenjima, I'm not mistaking those. Everything has been beaten before without an Idris Geo. It is possible. This content does not require an Idris Geo. Idris Geo just simply makes up for the fact that the rest of your party might not be top geared. That's all it does, okay? So Idris Geo is one of those items that just makes your support character in your party much more supporty. That's all it does, you guys. It is a very strong item to get in that regard, and it makes fights a lot easier in this game, but it still doesn't guarantee a victory on any particular fight that you need an Idris Geo for, so don't consider that just because a Geomancer doesn't have an Idris, they shouldn't join your party for any content. If you need an Idris for your party, what that simply should mean to everyone that hears your shout for an Idris Geo, all that really means, all I hear when you say I need an Idris Geo is that your party is Gimp. That's all I hear. If you say I need an Idris Geo in my party, that means you do not have faith in the ability of the players that are currently in your party, and you want to make up for that with the Idris Geo. And that's a great strategy, but that's all it is, another strategy. It's not required, okay? So, play non-Idris Geo for years if you must on Geomancer. It's fine. No one will fault you for that. You are going to love this job once you actually get your Idris done. Simple as that. It's simple as that, you guys. Now, for spells, there's an investment in spells. You have to buy a lot of spells, quest a lot of spells to play this job. It has a lot of the same spells Scholar does. Scholar had a huge spell investment. Geomancer's no exception. Huge spell investment. Has spells that all these other jobs before it had, and then it has more spells. You have to quest a lot of spells on Geomancer. You have to get them. They're very important. There's a lot of spell searching that you have to do, similar to Blue Mage, where you're trying to get all of your spells unlocked. There's a lot of legwork. It's not that hard. You can do it in a day or two. You can get this done. Just do it, get it over with, and you'll never have to do it again on that tune at least. Okay? It's not as bad as Blue Mage. Trust me. It's not as bad. So I would do it on a new tune in a heartbeat. As a matter of fact, I have multiple Geos at 119, and they're all done. quested. They all have all their quested stuff done, and all the spell books are complete. And it wasn't that hard. I did them all at the same time, kind of, so that was a perk, I guess. But it wasn't hard. It was not hard. Okay. So what else do we need to talk about Geo? We talked about the spells. There's skills involved. Lots of skills involved. They should all relatively be capped, but it's less important with Geomancer than it is with other jobs to have capped skills, okay? Geomancy skill and handbell skill are the two more important skills out of all the skills you have on Geomancer. Those are the two you're going to want to focus on. Get those capped first. They don't need to be capped. Don't make me repeat myself. I will say it one more time, unfortunately, just to make sure you guys heard me right. The Geo does not need to have capped skills. They don't even need 900 skill. They need roughly 900 skill to be any good at all. They need 900 skill to be great. Okay? Basically, from my math, it seemed to me that a lot of the ability of the Geomancer was basically curving out around 880-ish skill level. So like 440 Bell and 440 Geomancy. Then I was actually noticing that I wasn't really improving much beyond 880. So almost 900. There was a couple of spells, don't get me wrong, that still seemed to scale, but for the larger part of my testing on this, I didn't even need 900 skill to be good, okay? That's my point. That said, if you're below 800 skill on this job, you don't play it. You don't. If you have less than 800 combined Bell and Geomancy, because you need 400 plus each, don't play this job with less than 400 plus of each of those skills. They will be combined. The sum is what's important. And if the sum does not come close to 900, then you're probably bad. Okay? Your guy is just not going to get there as the Geo. Don't let people know if you really have to play with them. Don't let them know that you're less than 800 skill. They will probably find out anyway, but there's a chance they might not notice. So just keep your mouth shut. Because if you tell them that your skill level is 789 combined, they're going to say, nope, sorry, we're going to get someone else. And you're not going to have the ability to get your Geomancer even better geared and or better skilled, okay? So just roll with it, and if it doesn't work out, leave the party. Be courteous. Don't be a dick and keep hiding it. Because a lot of times you can still win. You can still win the content with a Gimp Geomancer in the party. So don't think that that's a problem. If the player actually requested a 900 Geo, that says something, right? That basically says that they need as much power from their Geo as possible. Just like if they requested an Idris Geo. If they didn't make that request, just keep your mouth shut if you're Gimp and just join their party. They're not going to care. You're a Geo. You're literally gold. Just like Bard and Red Mage and all this other crap, White Mage, you're gold. When they see you on Paladin and they need a Paladin and it's 4 in the morning and there are no Paladins, you're fucking gold. They don't care what you are. They really don't. They just want you. Same with Scholar now. Like, that's such a metagame job, and you could be trash tier and everyone wants to party with you. It's just the same with Geomancer. So there are scaling. I mean, depending on what you have, as far as gear goes, you can play to win, basically, with this job. But your ultimate in-game objective is the Idris. Your skills and spells should all be done at this point when you have the Idris. If not, you probably never needed them and never will need them for what you're doing as the Geo, so just ignore that and just carry on. But yeah, last thing you're going to want to get on this job is the Idris. Then you're going to probably want to work on your +2 and +3 equipment. And then you're probably all done. I would say the equipment's less important than the Idris, unfortunately. The Idris is really, really good. Because it just makes up for everybody else being Gimp. Like, every mistake anyone makes, your Idris is compensating for that. Okay? It's just huge. So huge. It's the biggest Idris everywhere. Like, of all time. There are no better Idrises than the Idris that I wish I had. You know what I mean? These are dick jokes. Mine's bigger than yours. Okay, let's move on, guys. So the last thing that I want to talk about is the Rune Fencer. Okay, the Rune Fencer is the last thing on this list. So let's talk about Rune Fencer. I'll spend a little bit more time on this job because I have a lot of experience with Rune Fencer. So let's get started. I'm going to try to go ahead and talk about it the same way I talked about everything else here, and maybe just add a few things, notes that I've made about the job. So Spells and skills. Rune Fencer spells, you should have them all, pretty much. They're not hard to get. You probably already have them, more or less. There's not much work to be done there. It could be done in 5 minutes, okay? So, let's talk about skills then. Skills for Rune Fencer. Rune Fencer, just like Dancer, looks like it's button mashing 90% of the time. But you have to do your job abilities in particular orders to get maximum effect. Sometimes if you do it in the wrong order, it just screws it up entirely, similar to Dancer. So there's a lot of thought that you have to make. You put in a lot of brain power when you play Rune Fencer. You're definitely piloting the Rune Fencer when you play Rune Fencer. It's not piloting you. It kind of feels like it sometimes when you get the algorithm figured out, like when you get all of the combos figured out, it feels like Rune Fencer is piloting you because you're just waiting for the abilities to like come off of cooldown, and then you can keep playing your job. So at that point, yeah, it's piloting you, but it's easy to get to that point. It's a very easy and fun job to master. Once you get it figured out, you're just always going to want to play it. And it's like riding a bicycle. If you put this job away for 6 months and you come back to the game on day 1, within 5 minutes of fighting your boss, you're going to have all of the combos figured out all over again. You're not going to learn anything new. It's going to come right back to you, and you're going to be like, oh, I need to do this, this, and this, and this. So this job is just like a bike. It will never get old. It will never get stale. It's quite fun. There's so many different combos you can do with it. So many different really cool interactions that it has with weapon skills and party members in general and certain bosses in general. There's just a lot of fun to be had with Rune Fencer. I would highly recommend people play this job. It's a very easy job to pick up and play. It's quite easy to play if you're coming from Paladin or any other type of tank or DPS job, which is like everything you might have already come from in the first place, so you have a working knowledge of how to tank and DPS, and so Rune Fencer is just a natural pick for a lot of players because it's just building off of what everything else in the game, basically. Okay, there's really nothing new here. The only new thing is the runes, and they function a lot like ninja runes, ninja wheel, elemental wheel. They function a lot like samurai weapon skills, like how certain elements might be more important than others. Basically, like, you're basically trying to hit somebody. Okay, best thing I could say is it's like ancient magic from Black Mage. Black Mage has ancient magic. If you hit with ancient magic or with Aja spells, AJA spells, then you weaken the the monster's resistance to that element or some element, okay? And so if you do it correctly and you combo it up with a follow-up spell of a certain element, then you get this added effect. Similarly, with Rune Fencer, that's exactly what you get. Basically, you play your combos, you do your job abilities, they're all unlocked as you level up. You don't have to invest anything in job abilities like you would with Corsair dice, okay? And with attachments on Puppetmaster. So Rune Fencer naturally gets everything, and you do the combo correctly, depending on what element you weaken it to, you can then follow it up with a weapon skill of whatever element you weakened it to, and it's going to do bonus damage. On top of that, any magic bursts that happen after you skill chain, not only is your skill chain doing bonus damage, but those magic bursts are doing a bunch of bonus damage. We're talking capped damage. If you rake with your job ability Rake, and you follow it up with a Gambit, okay? So the whole entire combo would be like, let's just say Ignis, Ignis, Ignis. No, let's just go even simpler, Lux. Let's say that you want to just simply do skill chain damage. So you're doing Lux, and because you're going to do Radiance with your Aeonic Greatsword, for example. So yeah, you would go Lux, 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 and then you would go Rake, and then you would go Lux, Lux, or Lux, 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 either one, and then, or maybe even just one Lux. And then while the Rake is starting to wear off, you use the Gambit. So now it has the Rake effect and the Gambit effect. Then you weapon skill. You've meditated, maybe, or you did Sekinoki with Samurai Sub, so now you weapon skill again. Or you simply use a TP item and you weapon skill again. Or you simply put your multi-hit gear on, hit him a couple of times after the first weapon skill, and you weapon skill again anyway. Rune Fencer is very fast at attacking and can skill chain quite easily, just as easy as Samurai, maybe not easier than Samurai, but just as easy as Samurai, and it's really strong doing the skill chains after you've weakened their elemental resistance, because your skill chain damage will go up as a result. Let's take another analogy. Let's say you're fighting a Morbol. one of the plant-like tentacle monsters in the game. Let's say that it likes to do breath attacks that deal infinite damage and kill infinite players. Everywhere, all the time. Well, you want to kill it before it does that. Well, one of the best strategies of killing these plants, these morbos, is actually using a Rune Fencer Rake Gambit combo with Ignis. Then you're going to Magic Burst, you're going to do a skill chain that's Light or Fusion, and then you're going to Magic Burst, or even Radiance, Magic Burst your fire damage with your Black Mages. They're going to do Flare, they're going to do Fire 6, they're going to do any fire spell. And then that fire spell is going to do 9s. It's going to do max damage. I don't care if it's a fire 3 or a fire 2 even. It's going to do max damage. These fire spells, don't get it twisted. If the Rune Fencer used Rake and Gambit and comboed correctly, okay? It's like 20 steps to the whole combo. If he comboed correctly and he put all of these enfeebles on the boss, and then like a Geo came around and said, you know what, I'm going to actually enfeeble the boss too. Take bonus magic damage. Things like this. If this starts happening, then the Black Mage casts any magic at all, that magic is doing max damage. It's just simply doing max damage. It's just, there's no other way to look at it. It happens so many times. It's constant. It's broken. It's so fucking broken. Rune Fencer allows it to be broken, though. Rune Fencer and Geo combined in a party with Black Mages equals a lot of 9s. A lot of 9s on damage, which basically translates to dead boss every single time. So these jobs are really strong in the metagame, both of them. Very strong jobs. I'm glad they exist. I love what they bring to the table and how it's different from what was on the table already. Otherwise, I feel like it would have gotten stale giving us new jobs that did the same thing. But no, they actually bring unique things to the table, and they were well thought out and well designed, and I'm appreciative of Square Enix of adding them to this game. Now let's talk a little bit more about the Rune Fencer, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so let's think about some gear choices Rune Fencer might make. Let's say you want to play Rune Fencer and you want to invest a little money in the job. What could you go for? Ultimate weapons. You probably need one. You don't need one right away. You can hold off on this. Zulfikar is not hard to get. It is an item level 119 great sword. Just like a lot of great swords, it's equipable by Rune Fencer, and it is an amazing item on Rune Fencer. I have a Dark Matter augmented one with quad attack. I have quad attack on my Zulfikar. That's nuts. I think it's like +2 quad. It could be higher than that, but it's not terrible, okay? So, nuts. Lots of stats on this Zulfikar. I'm very excited about it. The day that I got my Aeonic, though, the day that I got Lionheart, I put Zulfikar in storage and haven't touched it since then. Actually I lied. I think I did equip it once or twice on Warrior in Abyssy, because Warrior can still use it and it is one of the strongest greatswords in the game. Warrior doesn't have an ultimate yet on my tune, so yeah, I don't have an ultimate on Warrior, so I would use the Zulfikar sometimes. But I do have some pretty good great axes, item level 119 on Warrior, that I would use. And again, the weapon doesn't seem to matter on Warrior. So I did put the Zulfikar away eventually, and it is in storage now, and I have not touched it in a long, long time. But it is a really cool lock style, a really cool item in general, really good augments on it. In general, everyone can get these good augments on that particular greatsword. It's not difficult to get a really busted Zulfikar, and it's fantastic on Rune Fencer. It's a win-win, and it's quite easy to get. But once you get your ultimate, then things change completely. If you get an Aeonic, or you get your Ergon weapon, which in this case is not Idris, it is, what's it called? Epiolatry. If you get Epiolatry, the game changes for you. It's busted. It's like Yagrush. You have a whole new set of rules that you have to follow, and a lot of more homework to do when you get Epiolatry, similar to how when you get Yagrush, your White Mage gameplay changes. Okay, so just use that as an analogy, and when you get Idris, your Geomancer gameplay slightly changes, because now you're a little bit more geared, and your spells are a little bit more effective, so your math is a little bit different. Your skill required might be not the same, so a lot of things change, okay? So your equip sets might change as a result of getting these items, okay? But I don't have the Epiolatry yet. I think it's an amazing greatsword, and you should get it. And once I get to the point where I can get Idris and Epiolatry, I will work on both of them, because they are both very, very good on two very, very strong metagame picks right now. So it would be worth it to get them. But in the meantime, I'm happy with my, I don't know what club I'm using, but it's a good one. And I'm happy with my, what you call it? I also have the Dunna here. I didn't tell you about the bells. There's a few different bells in the game, but everyone gets the Obro weapon, which is the Dunna. But yeah, for Rune Fencer, the Lionheart, the Aeonic Lionheart. Done. Like, I don't need anything else. I could get so many other things for this job, but I feel like until I get Epiolatry, I'm done. I don't need anything else. Lionheart's really good. I was happy with Zulfikar, but then I got Lionheart, and I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to use this now and have that Radiance and do all those wicked combos and do all that extra Radiance damage. That's going to be nuts. And it is nuts, you guys. It's absolutely bonkers. I love the damage Rune Fencer has. Being a tank and also a DPS at the same time is pretty interesting. All right. So gear choices that you would make beyond ultimates. A lot of JSEs. I see a lot of people using JSEs on this job because there's quite a few JSEs that are macroed in to do different things, just like a lot of the jobs in this game, most or all of them, in fact. So you would want to get the JSEs that affect whatever it is you're trying to buff. But again, it's not mandatory. You don't have to get anything in particular to play this job well. You just want to get that stuff to play this job great. Other gear you could get, probably mostly ambuscade stuff, would compensate. Omen accessories as well would be pretty good for you, just like a lot of these jobs. And you could pretty much gear up to 119 that way, and I would think at that point you'd be just fine. I mean, there's so many different ways to equip the Rune Fencer that is just insane. So just use whatever comes natural to you and whatever you have access to. And again, it's going to be another play-to-win DPS / tank. So just note that as well. And that's it, I guess, for all of these jobs in this game, guys. So we've talked about every job in the game, all of the skills required and spells required to start playing the job, all of what's required to keep playing the job, what's expected of you to have while playing the job, the mastery and working game mechanics of the jobs that you need to have before you can competitively and reliably play that job in the metagame right now. We talked about the late game gear choices you're going to want to make for just about everything on this list that I can think of anyway. And we talked about every single ultimate in the game that I think would be played on these jobs, plus or minus what we just didn't have time to talk about because any equivalent ultimate would be good. I'm looking at the Dragoon here. Yeah, and I guess Ranger. Like, you know, just there's so many choices to make. You could make any of them. I talked about a few niche pieces like the Aeonic Samurai against the Omen bosses and the Mythic gun against Mythic Ranger gun against the Omen bosses, for example. Really strong stuff. Talked about some really clutch Magic Burst plays that you have access to with the Rune Fencer Geomancer combos. Talked about the solo Scholar badassery that you have access to in this game, and the solo Dancer badassery that you have access to in the game. The Diabolos with the Puppetmaster. Yeah, Puppetmaster getting in there with the Diabolos, and the Pup burns against a lot of content in the game. Like, you just don't want to get hit by a boss, so you just throw puppets at it. Yeah, okay. The Corsair lead and salute, one shot to the face with the death penalty. Yeah, and the support role that it plays, and just in general how many different gear choices it has, and how I guess it really just doesn't need anything else added to it. It's just a complete job. The Blue Mage being a meta choice for just about everything all the time. Ultimates just out the ass on this job that you can actually acquire. Gear choices in general that are just always getting better, and spells that are just always being released, better and better spells. It's just a nuts job, and it's just going to continue to get better. Samurai, with enough tweaks, will stay in the metagame, but will eventually probably fall out of the metagame because other jobs will just keep scaling, like Blue Mage. And same with Dragoon, right? The Ninja, I mean, I feel like this job, like I said, is always going to scale really well. So, talked about the Ninja. Summoner always being a metagame pick forever. Like, there's always a Summoner strategy. There's always an Arrow Burn strategy under Rangers. There's always going to be room for support classes like Bard. You'll always be able to solo stuff on Beastmaster. Plus, they're just going to keep getting better and better gear until they just do crazy, crazy shit. Like Red Mage can. Dark Knight is probably going to it's going to probably require more and more buffs to stay good. But since it's a one-handed job and they're just getting one-handed buffs that have been recently added to the game, like, not Smite, I don't know what I'm thinking of. Probably Smite. But whatever it is, the one-handed buffs that are added to the game, just to keep these jobs playable, it's going to stay there, but it's going to need a lot of work to stay in the metagame. Paladin's always going to be top-notch. You're always going to need a tank. Like, doesn't matter what you do. He's just going to be good no matter what he does. And then your original 6, which are always going to be really good choices to make, with maybe the exception of Monk, simply because it's just a very, in general, weak job when you size it up to your other choices in the game. I mean, I think Hunting for Games said it best when he said that Monk is just like a puppet master with no puppet. Because, like, that's 99% right. I mean, Monk might have slightly more DPS in just hand-to-hand ability, but when you factor in the puppet, now you have more DPS on the Puppet Master, almost always. Plus, there's just more tech that the Puppet Master has access to, with the exception of very few hand-to-hand weapons that actually do piercing, slashing, and blunt damage. There's actually a few different pieces that do different kinds of damage. Well, guess what? The Puppet Master can do that naturally by just changing the puppet out, okay? So, like, he doesn't even need those particular hand-to-hand items that you would need to get on Monk. And they're not even item level anymore, so they're just bad in general. So the Monk needs a lot of work to come back. But he's not a bad choice for some content. Abacy is really good with Monk. It's always going to be good because, simply put, he has access to blunt, piercing, and slashing damage. And he can do all sorts of different things that require all these different items that allow him to proc different mobs in Abacy. Mostly when you're trying to get like Raja's Ring from Raja, you can use Monk to just proc Raja during the blunt window because he can use the club, he can use the staff and the hand-to-hand knuckles, and he can just do all the procs during the blunt window. I think that's one of the best ways to use Monk currently is in the Abacy content. Yep, and that's it for this video, you guys. I hope I gave you guys enough information to wrap your head around and a little bit of different details about how all the jobs in Final Fantasy XI are played currently, and a little bit about their history, and little ideas about like what to suspect in the future on these jobs. Yeah. So we'll end it here, guys. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you guys who watched it to the end, and if you didn't, I can understand. It was a long video, but we finally got there. So I appreciate you guys leaving some comments in the comments section. Let me know what you thought about this video. Give me your 2 cents and how you feel each of these jobs should be played. And let me know which ones are your favorite and your experiences playing those jobs. I'll be looking forward to those comments. And until then, I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.